Imagine this scenario for a second. You have just spent, I don't know, $10,000 hiring a top-tier, award-winning web designer.
Right. A massive investment for any business.
Exactly. And they deliver this perfectly harmonious, beautifully color-coordinated website. I mean, the typography is elegant. The user experience is incredibly polite. It's just
Like a
gorgeous.
digital piece of art.
Yeah, exactly. But then a marketer comes along, takes a look at this absolute masterpiece, and just uh, slaps a massive, hideous, bright yellow button right in the middle of it.
Oh, the designer's worst nightmare.
Oh, your designer is weeping. You are absolutely horrified. But then overnight, your sales just absolutely skyrocket.
Which is such a wild thing to experience.
It really is. So today we are talking about why human psychology fundamentally hates perfect design and why, everything you've been taught about making your business look professional might actually be the exact reason your revenue is flatlining.
It is a truly terrifying realization for most business owners. I mean, we all harbor this deep-seated instinct to make things look sophisticated, right? To make sure everything blends seamlessly.
Yeah, we want to look like the polite host at a dinner party.
Exactly. But when you strip away the theory and actually measure what makes a human being, physically pull a credit card out of their wallet, the truth is entirely counterintuitive. It totally flies in the face of what looks good in a portfolio.
Which makes this just the perfect topic for today. We are exploring the first chapter of Russel Brunson's book, 108 Proven Split Test Winners.
Such a fascinating book.
Oh, it's incredible. And the chapter title itself is basically a masterclass in this aggressive, unpolished reality. It's called, Hello, Want to Give Us Some Money?
Subtle, very subtle.
Right. So over the course of this deep dive, we are going to dissect the raw, data-backed split tests that reveal how tiny, almost invisible tweaks to your website copy, your button placements, and, well, the literal numbers you use can radically alter buyer behavior.
And honestly, if you have any interest in business, entrepreneurship, or frankly, just the weird quirks of the human brain, understanding these raw psychological triggers is basically the ultimate shortcut to turning casual traffic into actual paying customers.
Couldn't agree more. And before we get into the weeds, I think it's crucial to establish what a split test actually is, right? Because this isn't just marketing philosophy.
No, not at all. A split test, or A/B testing, is essentially the scientific method applied to human behavior.
How so?
Well, you take two versions of a web page, say version A and version B. They're completely identical except for one single variable. Maybe you change a headline, or, maybe you change the color of a button.
Just one thing so you know exactly what caused the change.
Right, exactly. And then you send exactly 50% of your web traffic to version A and 50% to version B, and you just measure who buys more.
It's pure data.
Exactly. It completely removes human opinion, ego, and design theory from the equation entirely. It is a pure, undeniable measure of what actually works in the wild. I mean, people are voting with their wallets.
I love that framing. It's basically the scientific method for capitalism. So let's get right into the first major blind spot this data exposes, which honestly fundamentally changed how I look at every piece of marketing I consume.
The Hello Bar test, right?
Yes, the Hello Bar. So it revolves around a test they ran on a blog. Now, just to set the stage for you listening, this blog had an enviable problem. They had massive traffic.
Like thousands of readers pouring in every single day.
Yeah, people were reading the articles, they were learning a ton, and then they were just leaving. There was zero monetization happening.
A classic problem.
Total classic. So the owners decided to throw up a Hello Bar, which is, one of those thin little banners that sticks to the very top of your browser window, and it pointed people to a webinar where they could buy a product.
Right. And the banner itself is pretty standard practice.
Yeah, standard practice. But the magic, the thing that caused a massive spike in clicks, wasn't the placement at all. It was the specific grammatical tense of the words they used.
This part is so fascinating because language is basically the operating system of the brain. And we often underestimate how intensely sensitive that operating system is to the concept of time.
So what did they actually write?
Well, the creators of this test, they could have used standard marketing copy. They could have said something like, click here to make money, or you will learn how to make money.
Which is what everyone else does.
Right, exactly. But instead, the winning copy was strangely specific and highly immediate. It read, simple email tips, putting money in bank accounts right now.
putting money in bank accounts right now. I mean, the source text credits an explanation for this to someone named Ben, focusing on the psychology of verb tense. And I want to dig deep into this because it just sounds almost too simple.
It does sound simple, yeah.
Like, are we really saying that human beings are so easily manipulated by changing a future tense verb to a present tense verb?
I wouldn't necessarily say manipulated, but our brains are absolutely wired to categorize risk and truth based on temporal reality. Let's break down how the brain processes time when it encounters a claim.
Okay, lay it on me.
According to this theory, statements written in the past tense feel inherently, well, expired.
Right, like old news. If I tell you, this strategy made me $1 million last year, your immediate thought is probably, well, the economy was different last year. The algorithm has changed since then.
Exactly. Subconsciously, the brain flags past data as potentially irrelevant to current survival.
That makes total sense. The brain just treats the past as a closed case file. Like, it might be interesting, but it isn't urgent.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
Mhm.
Now, consider the future tense. This is where, 99% of marketing lives.
Oh, for sure. Our software will save you time. You are about to lose weight.
This course is going to change your life.
Right.
When the brain reads a future tense statement, it identifies it as a conditional hypothesis
Oh.
because it hasn't happened yet.
So it puts its guard up.
Yes. The brain's defense mechanism immediately kicks in. It triggers skepticism because the future is inherently unproven.
Mhm.
You are essentially asking the brain to take a leap of faith. And, well, the brain hates taking leaps of faith because leaps burn caloric energy and carry risk.
I want to make sure I really understand the mechanism here because it feels like a deep evolutionary biology thing. Like it's a survival mechanism, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's say we are out on the savannah thousands of years ago. If I tell you a lion will attack you tomorrow, your brain categorizes that as a future problem.
Right. You have time to prepare.
Yeah, you might start making a plan, but your sympathetic nervous system stays relatively calm. You can sleep tonight. But if I yell, a lion is attacking right now, your adrenaline spikes instantly.
The present tense completely removes the luxury of waiting.
Exactly. It demands immediate physiological processing.
That analogy hits the nail right on the head. The present tense bypasses the critical, evaluating part of the brain. Behavioral economists call that System 2 thinking. And it goes straight to System 1, which is immediate, fast, and automatic.
So it bypasses the filter entirely.
Right. When you read the words, putting money in bank accounts right now,
Yeah.
your brain doesn't flag it as a marketing pitch. It flags it as an environmental fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It is an ongoing, undisputed action happening in the world at this exact second. It completely shifts the burden of proof. A future promise says, trust me. A present reality says, this is happening whether you join in or not.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Do people really analyze grammar that closely when they're, just scrolling through a blog while drinking their morning coffee?
That's a fair question.
I mean, I click on links all the time, and I guarantee you I have never once consciously stopped to analyze the present participle of a call to action button.
Consciously. Absolutely not. I mean, if you stopped a user and asked them why they clicked that specific banner, they would never say, well, the present progressive tense really aligned with my risk-averse cognitive framework.
Right, they just look at you like you're crazy.
Exactly. They would probably just say, it looked interesting. The beauty of this split test is that it proves how much of our decision-making happens well below the waterline of consciousness.
So we're just reacting to the vibe of it.
Basically, yeah. We don't analyze the grammar. We just feel the urgency. We feel the truth of a present tense statement, whereas a future tense statement feels like someone is trying to sell us something.
That is incredibly profound when you think about the sheer volume of emails and landing pages being written every single day that get this completely wrong.
So much wasted potential.
Yeah, we are all out there promising conditional futures, basically asking our customers to trust us when we could just state present realities. So the practical takeaway for you listening is to aggressively audit your copy.
Definitely. Look at everything.
Look at your landing pages, your subject lines, your sales scripts. Are you promising people what will happen? Are you saying, this program will help you build muscle? Try changing it to, this program is building muscle for people right now.
Change your promises from unproven futures to undisputed present realities.
Exactly. Bypass that skepticism filter entirely.
It is such a low-cost, high-leverage tweak. I mean, you are changing a single word, maybe two, but you are fundamentally altering the psychological posture of the reader. You are moving them from a state of doubt to a state of observation.
Which is just the perfect setup for the next hurdle. because we've used the present tense to bypass their skepticism about the product. But, eventually we have to actually ask for their hard-earned money.
The dreaded moment.
Yes, and this is where the friction usually spikes. The source text shares a story to illustrate this, written by a contributor named Roland Mirabueno, and I gotta say, it is a hilarious case study in how our brains process pricing.
Oh, I love this story. It is fantastic because it demonstrates a highly sophisticated economic principle being executed flawlessly by, well, a 10-year-old child.
Yes. So Roland writes about how when he was a kid, he figured out this foolproof method for extracting money from his mother.
A true entrepreneur from day one.
Right. If he wanted $30 to go do something, he knew he couldn't just walk up and ask for $30. Because if he did, she would immediately interrogate him. Why 30? What do you need it for? Can't you do it for 15?
Total mom mode.
Exactly. Instead, he would walk into the room and say, Mom, I need $50 for a school project. And of course, she would immediately balk. She'd get defensive, totally shocked by the high price.
Which is exactly what he wanted.
Right at the peak of her sticker shock, he would smile and say, I'm only kidding. I only need $30. It's for a science project. And according to Roland, she handed over the $30 every single time without another word.
He essentially hacked what he brilliantly called her budget ministry.
Yes, the budget ministry. But let's dissect the hacking mechanism here. Why does dropping that $50 bomb first make the $30 an instant yes? If he just asked for 30, it's an expense. But somehow by mentioning 50 first, 30 becomes, I don't know, a relief.
It becomes a massive psychological relief. This is a textbook demonstration of the anchoring strategy, which is a concept heavily popularized by psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. So here's the foundational truth about how human beings perceive value. Our brains do not know how to evaluate a price in a vacuum. We have absolutely no absolute internal calculator that says, yes, a science project is worth exactly $30.
We just don't have that context built in.
Right. We rely entirely on our environment for context. We constantly search for a reference point, basically a baseline, to tell us if a number is high or low.
So the first number we hear becomes the permanent yardstick.
Exactly that. The first piece of numerical information presented to the brain becomes the anchor. It sets the ceiling of our expectations. When Roland asked for $50, his mother's brain immediately slammed into high gear.
Her cognitive load spiked.
Yes, her cognitive load spiked as she tried to justify a $50 expense. Her defenses were fully activated. But the moment he dropped the price to $30, the context radically shifted.
Oh, I see.
He was no longer asking her to incur a $30 expense. He was essentially offering her a $20 discount off her new anchored reality.
Because her brain wasn't comparing 30 to 0 anymore. It was comparing 30 to 50.
And compared to 50, 30 feels incredibly safe. The brain registers the drop in price as a win. The anxiety of the $50 anchor dissipates, and a rush of relief washes over the decision-making process.
That's wild.
The critical, interrogating part of her brain turned off because she felt like she had just successfully negotiated a bargain, even though, she was manipulated into the exact price he wanted all along.
I see this happen in real estate all the time. A realtor will show you a house that is wildly out of your budget. Let's say a $1.5 million home, and it has all the bells and whistles. You panic because you can't afford it.
Right, the anchor is set.
Exactly. Then they take you to the house they actually want you to buy, which is, say, $1.2 million. If they showed you the $1.2 million house first, you would have scrutinized every detail and complained about the price.
You would have picked it apart.
But because you were anchored at 1.5, the $1.2 million feels like you were getting a steal. It's the exact same mechanism.
It operates across every industry. Software as a service companies do this brilliantly with pricing tiers too.
Oh yeah, the tier pricing.
They will have a massive enterprise tier for like $2,000 a month, and they don't expect you to buy it. It exists almost entirely to anchor your brain so that the $99 a month pro tier looks like a negligible expense.
The $2,000 anchor totally neutralizes your budget ministry.
Exactly.
But I have to challenge the limits of this because there has to be a threshold where this backfires, right?
What do you mean?
Well, if I'm selling a basic ebook on how to train your dog, and I start my sales page by saying, normally to get this information, you would have to pay a private dog whisperer $1 million. But today you can have it for $49.
Right.
That completely insults my intelligence as a buyer. My brain doesn't anchor to the $1 million. My brain anchors to the fact that you are a liar. So how do you find the right anchor without just destroying your credibility?
That is a phenomenal point, and it really highlights the boundary of the heuristic. The anchor absolutely must be contextually plausible.
Plausible. Okay.
The brain is looking for a reference point. But if the reference point violates basic logic, System 2 thinking wakes up and rejects the entire premise. The key is to anchor against a legitimate, alternative reality.
So what would be a better anchor for the dog book?
If you are selling that dog training ebook for $49, your anchor shouldn't be $1,000,000. Your anchor should be the very real cost of hiring a local, in-person dog trainer for 6 weeks, which might be, say, $800.
Ah, so you say hiring a private trainer will easily cost you $800 and take up all your weekends. But this book gives you the exact same foundational commands for $49.
Now you have a highly plausible, incredibly effective anchor. You are forcing the prospect's brain to anchor at $800. Suddenly, the $49 isn't a cost. It's a $750 savings.
That is so smooth.
You have completely bypassed that logical defense mechanism that scrutinizes every dollar because they are just so relieved to not be spending $800.
So the practical takeaway here for the listener is vital. Never introduce your actual price in a vacuum. Never start a negotiation, a sales pitch, or a pricing reveal at your absolute bottom line.
Always contextualize it.
Always contextualize your price against a higher, highly plausible anchor. Make the customer feel that immense sense of relief and victory when you finally reveal what you are actually asking for.
If we pull back and look at what we've discussed so far, shifting to the present tense to bypass skepticism and using an anchor to bypass price anxiety, we're really just talking about smoothing out the psychological bumps in the road.
Right, removing the friction.
We are removing the emotional friction of saying yes. But what happens if the customer is totally sold, they are anchored, they feel great about the price, but they literally can't find the button to hand you their money?
Oh man, this brings us to a massive revelation in the text, which completely destroys a long-standing marketing sacred cow. I'm talking about the great delay myth.
This one caused a lot of arguments.
It really did. For years, the conventional wisdom in internet marketing was that if you are giving a presentation, like a long video sales letter, a webinar, or even a long sales page, you must aggressively hide the buy button until the very end of your pitch.
You literally do not let it appear.
Right. You physically do not let the button appear on the screen until you are entirely done talking.
The theory behind this was deeply entrenched. The assumption was that if a customer sees the buy button too early, before you have fully established the value of the product, they will click it, see the price, get terrified, and leave the page entirely.
Marketers basically believe that showing the button early was like asking someone to marry you on the first date.
Exactly. And the creators of this split test book mentioned that they kept testing this specifically because everyone in their industry was just screaming at them, telling them they were doing it wrong.
Right, they ran the numbers.
They ran the numbers, and the data completely shattered the assumption. In their tests, having no delay on the order button, meaning the button to buy was visible immediately, from the very first second the video started, won by an astonishing 30.36%.
Oh, for 30%.
In the world of conversion rate optimization, a 30% lift is essentially a tidal wave of new revenue. Over 30% more buyers simply because the button was allowed to exist on the screen from moment one.
I am really struggling with this one, though. I have to push back based on my own experience as a consumer.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I click on an ad for a new piece of software and I land on a page and the very first thing I see is a massive pulsing BY Now button before I even know what the software does, I am clicking the back button immediately.
It feels pushy.
It feels totally scammy. It feels incredibly aggressive, like they just want to pick my pocket before they even introduce themselves. How does the data reconcile with that very real feeling of being rushed?
Your reaction is completely valid, and, well, it's the exact reason marketers invented the delay in the first place. But your reaction assumes that every single person landing on that page is in the exact same psychological state that you are in.
Right. It assumes everyone is a cold lead.
Exactly. It assumes the uniformity of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The critical flaw in the delay myth is the failure to understand the spectrum of buyer awareness.
The spectrum of buyer awareness. Walk me through that.
So not everyone who lands on your page is at a zero trust, low awareness level. In marketing, there is a concept pioneered by Eugene Schwartz about how aware your prospect is.
Okay.
Some people are completely cold. They don't know who you are, what they need. Those people, yes, they need the 45-minute video presentation. But what about the person who has been on your email list for 2 years?
Oh, that's a good point.
What about the person who bought your last product and loved it? What about the person who clicked a retargeting ad and has already watched half your video yesterday?
They are, trust me, they are already hot traffic.
Yes. They arrive at your page already holding their credit card. They are intrinsically sold on the value proposition. When you hide the buy button for 45 minutes, you are catering entirely to the coldest, most skeptical person in the room.
And punishing your best customers.
You are actively punishing your most eager, loyal buyers. You are forcing someone who wants to give you money to sit in a waiting room.
That makes so much sense when you put it like that. It's like going to a restaurant because you saw a specific slice of cherry cheesecake in the window. You walk in, sit down, and you know exactly what you want.
But the waiter won't let you order.
Right. The waiter refuses to let you order. He forces you to listen to the entire history of the restaurant, a recitation of all the appetizers, and a 20-minute description of the wine list before he finally hands you the dessert menu.
You aren't going to be convinced by the pitch. You are just going to get annoyed and leave.
Exactly. You are introducing massive behavioral friction.
And in the digital world, annoyance leads directly to abandonment. The psychological insight here is that the people who need a 45-minute pitch are still going to sit there and watch it, whether the button is visible underneath the video or not.
Having the button there doesn't stop them from watching.
Right. The presence of the button doesn't stop them from consuming the information they need to feel safe. But for the people who are ready to buy at minute 2, that visible button is a fast lane.
It honors their time.
It respects their agency. We often oversell our customers because of our own insecurity as business owners. We assume we have to meticulously build the perfect argument every single time.
But the data proves otherwise.
The data proves that sometimes the customer's already convinced, and your only job is to get out of their way.
It reminds me of the chapter title, Hello, want to give us some money? I mean, if they want to give it to you, for heaven's sake, give them a place to put it. So the practical takeaway for you listening is clear. If you are using video sales letters, long-form sales pages, or any kind of delayed pitch, stop hiding your cart. Assume that a percentage of your audience is already sold before they even arrive. Give your customers the option to buy the exact second they feel the impulse.
And this leads us to a fascinating paradox. We've established that the button needs to be there immediately. But simply existing on the page isn't enough.
Right, they have to actually see it.
The customer actually has to see it and be drawn to it. And this is where we collide head-on with the eternal bloody war between web designers and direct response marketers.
Oh man, this is where it gets painful for anyone with an eye for aesthetics. We are talking about the ugly wins phenomenon.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate clash between aesthetic harmony and brutal utility.
It really is a war.
And as someone who appreciates clean, minimalist design, this part hurts my soul, but the data is completely merciless.
The data has absolutely no regard for color theory or artistic vision.
None at all. We have 2 specific tests from the book that highlight this tragedy. First, they tested the inclusion of what they literally named the big, annoying yellow button.
Great name.
Very literal. They took a standard web page and slapped this massive, gaudy yellow button right near the top. Aesthetically, it must have looked like a horrific mistake. It completely broke the flow of the page.
But what were the results?
It increased the overall conversion rate by a staggering 33%. It took them from a baseline 1.5% conversion rate to a 2% conversion rate.
And for anyone who doesn't obsess over analytics, moving from 1.5 to 2% might sound like a tiny fraction. But in the world of online traffic, that is a 33% increase in total revenue without spending an extra dime on advertising.
It is completely game-changing.
Huge.
But the second test is even more dramatic, and it perfectly illustrates the conflict. It was for a product called Vigon, which treats cold sores. They had a nice professional sales website. The web designer, doing exactly what they were trained to do, wanted a blue headline to match the site's overall blue branding.
Because they wanted it to look harmonious and trustworthy.
Exactly. But the marketer stepped in, overruled the designer, and tested a bold, jarring red headline instead.
Yeah.
And the red headline made 3 times more money, a 300% increase in revenue just by making it ugly.
What is truly fascinating here is understanding the neurobiology of why the designer's instinct, which feels so right to us, is actually a death sentence for conversions.
Why is that?
We can refer to this as the camouflage effect. Designers are trained in the Bauhaus tradition of form and function blending together. They want harmony. They want everything to belong to the same color palette, to flow smoothly, so the user's eye isn't jarringly interrupted.
But that creates a problem.
A huge problem.
Yeah.
Because in nature, when an organism blends in harmoniously with its environment, it becomes invisible. It's camouflaged.
Oh, wow. So by making the website harmonious, the designer accidentally camouflaged the most important parts of the business.
Exactly. Our visual cortex is hardwired by evolution to ignore harmony and scan for anomalies. When you look at a lush green forest, your brain doesn't process every individual green leaf, right?
Right. It just sees green forest.
It filters it out as background noise to save energy. But if there is a bright red poison dart frog sitting on a branch, your eye snaps to it instantly. Red is a warning color. Yellow is a warning color.
High contrast.
Yes, high contrast signals to the brain. Pay attention right now. This is important for your survival.
So harmony equals invisibility. Contrast equals attention.
Yes. If your Add to Cart button is a tasteful muted shade of slate gray that perfectly complements your background, you are forcing the customer's brain to burn calories hunting for it. You're burying the poison dart frog under a pile of leaves.
That is such a vivid image.
A big annoying yellow button or a jarring red headline violently interrupts the user's scrolling pattern. It is ugly, precisely because it refuses to blend in. It forces the visual cortex to stop and engage.
Here is what is so tough about this. We all desperately want our websites to look like a sleek Apple store. Minimalist, beautiful, lots of negative space. We think that looking professional builds trust.
But the data disagrees.
The data says that if we want to actually make money, we need our websites to perform like a giant neon highway billboard.
The Apple Store analogy is actually a great trap.
Yeah.
Apple can afford to use minimalist, low-contrast design because they have $1 trillion in brand equity. You already know what an iPhone is. You just have to point at it.
Right, they don't have to shout.
But for the 99% of businesses out there fighting for a millisecond of the consumer's attention, you do not have the luxury of whispering. You have to shout visually.
So for you listening, the practical takeaway is to ruthlessly execute a contrast audit of your site. Pull up your landing page and just squint your eyes until it goes blurry. Where does your eye naturally go?
A great exercise.
If your most important call to action elements, like your headlines, your buy buttons, your opt-in forms, if they're blending into the background, you're bleeding money. Do not let your ego or your desire for a pretty brand cost you sales.
Test high contrast colors.
Try bright red, neon orange, or a big annoying yellow button. Let the unforgiving data dictate the design, not your aesthetic pride.
And it's crucial to remember that getting them to notice and click that ugly button is really only the halfway mark. Once they click, they enter the most vulnerable phase of the transaction.
The checkout phase.
Right. This is where you can easily and accidentally turn them away at the finish line by making them feel trapped or overwhelmed.
Which brings us to the profound importance of removing cognitive friction. We are talking about those tiny, seemingly insignificant micro moments of hesitation that just completely short-circuit a sale or an opt-in.
They are silent killers.
They really are. The source material highlights two incredible examples of this, starting with what they call the catch-all test on a landing page survey.
This test is a brilliant window into the psychology of compliance and how easily the brain gives up when it encounters a paradox.
So here's the setup. They had a landing page that required the user to answer a very simple question before they could proceed to the next step. The question was, how did you hear about us?
A very standard question.
Very standard. And they provided a drop-down menu with 3 specific options to click. Let's say the options were from a friend, Facebook ad, or email newsletter. The problem they discovered was that if a visitor didn't fit perfectly into one of those 3 exact boxes, they just abandoned the page entirely.
They just left.
They left. But on making one microscopic change, adding a 4th option that just said the word other, the earnings per click skyrocketed by 206%.
Wow.
It went from making 32 cents per click to 97 cents per click. A massive jump in revenue just by adding a 5-letter word.
It seems almost absurd that a single word like other could generate a 200% increase in revenue. But if we examine the concept of cognitive load, it makes perfect rational sense.
Walk us through that. Why does a human brain, which is capable of complex mathematics and art, short-circuit over a simple drop-down menu? If the option isn't there, why don't they just pick the closest wrong answer and move on?
Because of the psychological weight of micro-commitments. When a user interacts with a form, they're engaging in a series of micro-commitments with your brand. In this survey, the system is asking them a factual question about their own reality. How did you get here?
Right.
Now, contrary to popular belief, most people inherently prefer to tell the truth. It requires less mental energy to be honest than to invent a lie.
So if I found the site through a Google search, but the only options are friend, Facebook, or email, I literally cannot answer the question truthfully.
Exactly. You are faced with a forced false choice. Your brain halts. It recognizes a conflict between its reality and the system's parameters. Now, you have to decide, do I lie and click Facebook? If I lie, will it affect the service I get?
Which wrong answer is the least wrong?
Yes. That process requires a spike in caloric energy and cognitive processing. It creates friction. And in the digital space, when faced with friction, the default human response is to abandon the task. It's just easier to close the tab than to solve the paradox.
Wow. So when they add the word other to the survey, it feels like it's just letting the user off the hook. It's an escape hatch.
That's precisely what it is. Adding the word other provides a universal truth. It is a catch-all that validates everyone's reality. It allows the user's brain to say, yes, my experience is accounted for, check the box effortlessly, and maintain their momentum toward the final goal.
You aren't forcing them to burn calories lying to you.
Exactly.
It's like putting a roadblock on a highway versus opening up a bypass lane. You have to give everyone a lane to drive in. And that concept of reducing friction applies just as heavily to how we ask for the actual money, which brings us to the second example, the split pay test.
This deals with a very different kind of friction. Not logistical friction, but emotional friction.
Right. They were selling a product priced at $197, and for whatever reason, that specific price point was causing a bottleneck. Conversions were sluggish, people were getting to the checkout page and then just bouncing.
It was too much all at once.
Well, when they offered a split payment option, allowing the customer to pay in 2 installments of $97 instead of one lump sum, the conversions suddenly broke through the roof. The text notes that versions 8 and 9 of their sales letter vastly outperformed the previous versions, specifically because they introduced this split pay option.
This touches on a deeply emotional mechanism related to how we perceive financial risk and large numbers. When a customer is presented with a $197 lump sum, it triggers a phenomenon we can call justification anxiety.
Justification anxiety. I know that feeling intimately. You have the item in your cart, your finger is hovering over the trackpad, and suddenly a wave of guilt washes over you.
Exactly. When you ask someone for almost $200 all at once, you are asking them to make a significant, singular financial decision. The moment they see that lump sum, their brain's defense protocol initiates.
They start second-guessing.
They suddenly have to justify the expense to themselves. Can I afford this large hit to my bank account right now? What else could I buy with this money? And crucially, they often have to justify it to a partner or a spouse.
How am I going to explain a $200 charge on the credit card statement?
Exactly. It's a massive cognitive and emotional load.
It feels risky. It feels like a big commitment.
But a split payment fundamentally alters the mental math. If you offer 2 payments of $97, the immediate upfront risk is cut in half. $97 feels exponentially safer than $197.
It slips under the radar of that justification anxiety.
It really does. It feels manageable, like a subscription or utility bill, rather than a major purchase. Even though they end up paying the exact same amount, or sometimes even slightly more with financing fees, the barrier to entry is lowered. You've removed the spike of emotional friction.
So what does this mean for you, the listener? It means you need to relentlessly review the pathways your customers take to give you money. Are you forcing people into rigid boxes they don't fit into with your intake forms or survey questions?
Are you asking for too big of a financial leap all at once?
Add catch-all options like other to keep their momentum going. Offer payment plans, split pays, or financing to reduce that justification anxiety. Make it as smooth, frictionless, and emotionally painless as possible for them to say yes.
Reducing friction is ultimately about building trust.
Mm-hmm.
You are signaling to the customer that you understand their hesitation and you are accommodating their needs. And the concept of trust leads us perfectly into the final and perhaps most mind-bending idea from the chapter.
This one is my favorite.
How the exact specific numbers we use in our marketing dictate whether a customer inherently trusts us or instantly assumes we are lying to them.
This is the idea of the credibility of specificity, and it absolutely blows my mind how deeply irrational we are about mathematics and numbers.
The human brain is a brilliant pattern recognition machine, but because processing data takes so much energy, it relies heavily on heuristics, mental shortcuts, to make quick judgments about truth and falsehood.
So here is the split test that exposes the shortcut. They tested 2 different headlines for a product. The first headline promised to help the user add 1,000 new leads a day to their email list. Nice, round, clean number.
Very clean.
The second headline promised to help them add 1,198 people a day. A very jagged, highly specific, odd number, and the highly specific number completely dominated the test.
It's a brilliant test because it exposes a vulnerability in how we evaluate claims. When a human being sees a perfectly rounded number like 1,000 or 500 or 50,000, System 1 in the brain instantly assumes it is a guess.
It feels like an estimation.
Or worst of all, a marketing exaggeration.
Yeah, it feels manufactured. It's too clean.
Because reality is never that clean. Nature doesn't produce perfectly rounded integers. When we see 1,000, the brain's marketing BS alarm goes off. It assumes you just picked a nice-sounding number out of thin air.
But what happens with the jagged number?
When we see a specific jagged number, like 11,198, it short-circuits that skepticism. Subconsciously, our brain assumes that someone had to sit down with a calculator, run a spreadsheet, and do the actual math to arrive at a number that weird.
We assume they did the work.
We assume it is based on hard empirical data or a meticulously documented case study. The jaggedness of the number provides inherent, unearned credibility.
I want to use an analogy here that I think everyone can relate to. It's exactly like when you are waiting at a restaurant for a friend to arrive and you text them, hey, how far away are you?
Oh, I know where this is going.
If they text back and say, I'll be there in 5 minutes, you know with absolute profound certainty that it is a total lie. 5 minutes is a placeholder. It means they haven't even found their car keys yet.
Exactly.
But if they text back and say, my GPS says I will be there in 6 minutes, you believe them implicitly. You believe the 6 minutes because it sounds calculated. It doesn't sound like a panicked guess. It sounds like satellite data.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play. The 5 minutes is the 1,000 leads. It's a polite fiction. The 6 minutes is the 11,198 leads. It represents an actual granular measurement.
It changes how you perceive the claim entirely.
In a business context, if you tell me your accounting software will save my company $10,000 a year, I assume you're just throwing out a round number to sound impressive. I discount the claim immediately.
Right.
But if you say your software will save me $10,432 a year, I instantly assume you've aggregated the data of thousands of users and averaged it out. I believe the claim without asking to see the math.
The specificity just bypasses the critical faculties entirely. So the practical takeaway here is ridiculously simple, yet so few people do it. Stop rounding your number.
Just stop doing it.
Stop trying to make your data look neat and tidy. If you have a client case study that generated $4,112, do not round it down and say you helped someone make $4,000. You are actively destroying your own credibility. Use the exact data. Use odd numbers. Use decimals. Lean heavily into the jagged metrics in your copy because it builds instant subconscious trust.
It goes entirely against our instinct, much like the ugly red headline. We want clean numbers, we want harmony, we want polite pacing, but the market responds to real, jagged, unpolished realities.
Which brings us to the synthesis of everything we've unpacked today. If we pull all these disparate split tests together, the shift to present tense verbs, the psychological anchoring of prices, placing the order button immediately on the screen, the ugly high contrast headlines, removing the friction with catch-all surveys, and using jagged specific numbers. What is the true soul of this chapter? What is the one grand unified theory we need to walk away with?
I think the core insight here is a somewhat humbling realization about human nature. As consumers and as business owners, we all like to think we are highly rational, highly evolved creatures. We believe we make buying decisions based on sleek design, polite pacing, and clean, harmonious logic.
But the data says otherwise.
The brutal, undeniable data from these split tests tells a completely different story.
The data says we are actually driven by incredibly primal instincts.
We absolutely are. We respond to immediate present tense threats and gratification. We are visually drawn to high contrast, even ugly warning colors that interrupt our environment.
We need emotional friction removed from our path immediately.
And we use rapid mental shortcuts, like exact numbers and price anchors, to decide who to trust in a split second.
So at the end of the day, human psychology really doesn't care about what looks polite or conventional or what wins a design award.
Not at all. The ultimate lesson here is that, as a business owner, you have to stop trusting your intuition. Stop trying to make your marketing pretty or polite based on your own biases and insecurities.
You just have to follow the math.
You have to subordinate your ego to the raw, unforgiving data and let the numbers tell you what your customers actually respond to.
Stop guessing and start testing. Let the market dictate the reality. I love that. Well, thank you for joining us on this incredibly deep dive. I hope this conversation has forced you to look at your own websites, your own copywriting, and your own pricing models in a completely new, slightly uncomfortable light.
It's a lot to process.
It definitely is. To close things out, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over today. We saw that simply changing a harmonious blue headline to a jarring red one tripled the revenue for a product. So ask yourself, what other pretty things in your business are secretly sabotaging your success right now?
Good question.
Now that we've completely shattered how you think about your website's design and your copy, you are going to want to stick around. Wait until our next deep dive where we pull back the curtain on something called the toilet letter test. It is a strategy so wildly unconventional, so bizarre, you'll wonder how it ever generated a single dollar, let alone a fortune. See you then. So what if changing the shape of, like, a simple text box or just making a headline stop moving could instantly boost your business by 40%?
I mean, it sounds almost like a magic trick, right? Or some kind of hyperbole just designed to sell you something.
Yeah, completely. Like clickbait.
Exactly. But it's not magic.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not an exaggeration. It is, well, it's human psychology, meticulously quantified through thousands and thousands of interactions.
And that is exactly where we're heading today. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here for this one.
Because, we all walk around thinking we know what makes people click on things or what makes them buy or subscribe to a newsletter.
Right. We trust our gut. We rely on intuition.
Exactly. We look at a web page and think, yeah, that looks good to me.
Which is usually our first mistake.
Yeah, because data often proves our instincts completely hilariously wrong. So today, we are doing a deep dive into the psychology of on-page conversion tweaks.
Specifically focusing on Chapter 2 of the .com Secrets Labs data.
Right, the chapter titled Wanna Play Mad Libs. And you're going to learn why tiny, seemingly insignificant changes to your forms, your headlines, and your buttons can just completely revolutionize your results.
And maybe more importantly, you're going to learn why this matters for anyone trying to get humans to take action.
Whether that's online, in a pitch meeting, or, even in your own living room.
That last part is really the crucial lens for this entire discussion. Because in the world of online business, or really any digital interaction you have with another human being, friction is the absolute enemy.
Friction is the enemy. I like that.
Yeah, we aren't just looking at random A/B tests today. We're not just, comparing version A to version B and cheering for the winner.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. We are decoding human behavior through hard data. We're looking at what actual people do when they think no one is watching.
Right, and how the smallest, most invisible digital hurdles can just turn them away completely.
Exactly.
So let's start with the concept that actually gives this chapter its name, the Mad Libs style form.
This is such a fascinating finding.
It really is. Now, we've all seen a standard opt-in form on a website, right? Like, you want a free guide or you want to contact a business, and you're presented with a stack of empty boxes.
Right. First name, last name, email address.
Maybe a phone number. They're everywhere. They are essentially the digital toll booths of the internet.
Digital toll booths. That is an incredibly accurate way to describe them.
Right.
Because they're highly transactional, they're sterile, and above all, they are demanding.
Demanding, yeah, that's the word.
They just sit there asking for your personal currency before they let you pass.
Exactly. And for years, the prevailing wisdom in web design was just to make these toll booths as short as possible.
Right, like don't ask for a phone number if you don't absolutely need it.
Yeah, everyone says that. But Russel Brunson noticed a test from a site called Loop.com that completely flipped this logic on its head.
It's a really brilliant test.
It did something wild. It took those stark, empty boxes, those digital toll booths, and replaced them with a narrative.
A literal Mad Lib style form.
Exactly, where the user actually fills in the blanks of a pre-written story.
Let's make sure we paint a crystal clear picture of what this looks like for you listening right now.
Good idea.
Imagine a standard car dealership inquiry form. You've probably filled one out, or at least seen one.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Usually it's just a gray box that says name, another that says email, and maybe a drop-down for vehicle of interest.
It's cold. It feels like a police interrogation.
A police interrogation, yes.
State your name for the record. State your contact information.
Precisely. But the data shows us a completely modified version of this exact form.
Yeah, right.
Instead of those sterile boxes, the page reads like a personal letter. It literally says, "Hello, my name is," and then a blank for first name and last name.
Right.
And I'm writing you today to learn more about the 2009 Chevrolet Silverado I live at. blank street address. Please call me back on blank phone number.
So the user is just typing their information into those bracketed blanks right inside the sentence.
Exactly. And the data on this is staggering.
It really is. They tested this concept across, I think, about a dozen different sites.
Yeah, in completely different industries, too.
Right, and they saw conversion increases across the board ranging from 25% to 40% or more.
40%. Just let that sink in for a moment.
A 40% increase in leads just by changing the format of the fields, not even the actual information being requested.
You aren't changing the offer at all. You are giving them a better price on the truck.
Right.
You are literally just changing the architectural structure of how you ask for their data.
Right.
And nearly half again as many people decide to give it to you.
But okay, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Because my gut instinct screams that this is wrong. Why does this work? I mean, it actually looks like way more reading.
It does look like more reading, yeah.
And we're always told that people on the internet have zero attention span, like literally zero.
Yeah.
You want them to do the least amount of work possible. I just compared the standard form to a police interrogation, which is obviously bad.
Right.
But at least a police interrogation is quick.
Right.
You know? Name, number, done.
Get in, get out.
Exactly. This Mad Libs form, it feels like a script for the socially anxious. I mean, it gives the user the exact words to say, sure, but it requires them to read a whole paragraph just to give you their phone number.
That is a really brilliant observation. And it highlights a massive misconception we all have about how human beings actually process information online.
Okay, lay it on me. What are we getting wrong?
Well, we tend to equate word count with cognitive effort.
Yeah.
We think, more words automatically equals more work.
Because usually it does.
Not necessarily. It's not about the amount of reading. It's about the context of the reading.
Context.
When we look at the psychology behind this, it is entirely about contextualization and mitigating perceived risk.
Okay, let's unpack that. How does reading a paragraph mitigate risk better than just typing my name into a little white box?
Think about what happens in your brain when you encounter a standard form.
Okay.
It triggers these subconscious privacy fears. The brain sees a standalone box demanding phone number, and the immediate primitive internal response is highly defensive.
Like alarms going off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The amygdala flares up slightly.
Hmm.
You start thinking, why do they want my phone number? Are they going to spam me?
Are they going to sell my data to some telemarketer? Yeah, I think that every time.
Right. The user is essentially forced to mentally bridge the gap between that blank form field and the value they hope to get out of the interaction.
Ah, I see. So the user is doing the heavy lifting of justifying the transaction to themselves.
Precisely.
I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I really want to know the price of this truck, so I guess I have to give them my number, but I really don't want to.
It's an internal negotiation, and it's a high-friction internal negotiation.
Right.
But a narrative form like this Mad Libs form, it justifies the data request in real time, right inside the sentence.
Wow, okay.
When you read, please call me back on this phone number at your earliest convenience, the context is baked in.
It's already there.
Exactly. You aren't surrendering your data to a faceless corporate void. You're completing a thought.
You are consciously saying to yourself, I am giving you my number so you can call me back about this specific 2009 Chevrolet.
Yes. It shifts the user's mindset entirely from defense to active participation.
So it shifts from surrendering data to, like, having a conversation.
That's exactly what it is, a conversation.
That makes so much sense. It feels collaborative rather than extractive.
Yes, collaborative is a great word for it. It creates a profound sense of agency, too.
Because I'm the one writing the letter.
Exactly. You are the author of the letter, even if you're just filling in the blanks.
Right.
It naturally lowers the defensive barriers that standard forms raise, because the purpose of the data collection is inextricably linked to the user's own stated desire.
It's not just give us your phone number.
Right. It's tell us where to reach you so we can help you with what you just asked for.
The psychological difference there is night and day.
It really is.
Wait, this has to apply outside of web design, right? I mean, it has to.
Oh, absolutely. How so? What are you thinking?
Well, like, if I'm emailing my team for a report and I just write, need the Q3 report by Friday,
Ooh, yeah.
am I effectively sending them a cold, sterile form field? Like, am I triggering that same defensive friction?
You absolutely are. That is a perfect real-world application of this exact data.
Wow.
Because if you just send that one-line demand, It's highly transactional. It's a
Yeah.
digital toll booth in their inbox.
Right. My colleague receives it and immediately thinks, why does he need it Friday?
Exactly. I have 10 other things to do. This is just more work for me. They have to sit there and justify your demand to themselves.
But if I contextualize it, if I create a Mad Libs conversation out of the email,
What would that sound like?
I could say, hey, I'm pulling together the board presentation for Monday, and to make sure your team's hard work is highlighted, I need the Q3 report by Friday.
Boom. Precisely. You've provided the why alongside the what. You've baked the justification right into the request.
I'm no longer demanding their labor. I'm inviting them to participate in a shared goal.
Exactly. And the friction just disappears,
Yes.
just like it does on the car dealership website.
Man, it's honestly a little uncomfortable to realize how often we create our own friction just by trying to be overly brief.
We all do it. We think efficiency is brevity.
Yeah, we think we are saving time, but we're actually just stripping away the context that makes people feel safe taking action.
That is beautifully said.
So the overarching takeaway here is to contextualize your requests. Look at how you ask for things. Make them feel like a natural conversation rather than a cold demand.
And that principle, that idea of reducing friction, it leads us perfectly into the next major finding.
Okay, where are we going next?
Because long before someone decides to fill out your beautifully contextualized form, they have to actually stay on the page.
Sure.
They have to read the very first thing you present to them.
The headline. The gatekeeper of the entire interaction.
Exactly. If the headline fails, the rest of the page just doesn't matter.
The form doesn't matter. The product doesn't matter. You've completely lost them.
Right. And the data dives into a very specific test regarding headlines, which essentially becomes this epic battle of clarity versus cleverness.
Oh, I love those battles.
We all do. Specifically, they ran a split test comparing a static, unmoving headline to an animated one,
Okay, so in the animated version, the text comes in dynamically, like line by line.
which is an incredibly popular design trend right now.
Oh, yeah, everywhere.
If you look at modern web templates, everything is sliding, fading, bouncing into view. People just love things that move.
Exactly, I see it all the time. And so the test was for a product focused on a very serious topic, right?
Right, helping people overcome pornography addiction.
So you have version A, where the headline is just sitting there on the page, static.
Boring static text.
And version B, where the headline slides in piece by piece, looking all modern.
Exactly.
The result, the animated headline lost.
And it didn't just lose by a fraction of a percent.
No, it lost by a massive 28.52%.
A nearly 30% drop in conversions.
Literally just because the text was moving. That is a brutal, catastrophic penalty for a design choice.
It really is.
But again, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
Because this goes against everything we think we know about capturing attention. I mean, doesn't movement grab the eye?
It does.
I thought the whole point of the modern internet was that you need flashy things to stand out.
That's what everyone tells you.
Like, if I'm scrolling mindlessly on my phone, movement makes me stop. Why wouldn't we want the headline to slide in dynamically? It feels premium. It feels modern.
It is a very, very common trap, and developers and designers fall into it every single day.
So what's the trap?
It comes down to differentiating between two very different psychological and physiological states.
Okay.
Catching attention versus retaining comprehension.
Catching attention versus retaining comprehension. Okay, I need us to really explore that. What is actually happening in the brain there?
Well, you are absolutely right that movement catches the eye. From an evolutionary standpoint, our peripheral vision is heavily hardwired to notice movement.
Right, survival mechanism.
Exactly. It's a survival mechanism. It's how our ancestors spotted a predator in the tall grass, or, how they spotted prey.
So we physically can't ignore it.
Right. Our eyes physically dart toward motion automatically. So, yes, the animation absolutely catches the attention.
But catching someone's eye is only the first millimeter of the journey.
Exactly. Once you have their attention, the survival mechanism turns off, and the cognitive processing mechanism has to turn on.
They need to actually understand what you were saying.
Right. Now, think about the physical mechanics of reading.
Okay.
Our eyes do not move smoothly across a line of text.
Wait, they don't?
No, they make tiny rapid jumps. They're called saccades. They pause for these tiny milliseconds to ingest chunks of words.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, our brains are actually predicting the next word in the sentence before our eyes even get there. It is a highly rhythmic, completely subconscious process.
So when you force a reader to wait for text to appear line by line.
You are fundamentally breaking their natural reading rhythm.
Oh, I see.
The brain is trying to predict the sentence, the eye is trying to jump forward, but the visual delivery system, the animation, is withholding the information.
Man, it's like someone talking to you but taking a long pause between every single word.
Yes. Perfect example.
Yeah.
And how does that make you feel when someone talks to you like that?
Deeply frustrated. I just want to yell, spit it out.
Exactly. It creates micro frustrations.
Wow.
The brain is expending all this extra energy trying to parse the meaning of a sentence while simultaneously being extremely annoyed by the pacing.
That is wild.
There is a core philosophy in direct response marketing, which Russel Brunson highlights perfectly here.
What is it?
A confused mind always says no.
A confused mind always says no. That is a powerful mantra.
It is the golden rule. If the brain has to expend extra calories just to physically read the promise you are making, it will simply give up.
Right.
Confusion, frustration, and delay, they all register in the brain as friction.
And the brain's default response to friction is retreat. We just leave the page.
Exactly. Now, it is important to note that the data doesn't say animation is universally evil.
Oh, it doesn't. So there's a caveat.
There is a caveat.
Okay, so there are times when you actually should use the sliding text.
Yes, animated headlines have won in other specific scenarios.
Interesting.
That is why testing is paramount and guessing is incredibly dangerous. For example, if you are in a highly entertainment-driven market.
Like video games or movies?
Exactly. Maybe selling event tickets. If the animation perfectly aligns with the emotional excitement of the message, it might work. It might add to the theatricality.
It sets the mood.
Right.
But for a sensitive, serious topic like overcoming an addiction,
Exactly. The user arriving at that page is likely already in a state of high anxiety or emotional distress.
they don't want to show.
No, they are seeking a solution.
Yeah.
They are not looking for a theatrical performance.
They want absolute, immediate clarity.
They want to know, am I in the right place? And can you actually help me?
And making them wait for that answer, even for just 2 seconds while a headline slides in, is agonizing.
Agonizing and friction heavy.
The practical takeaway here is so clear. We just have to prioritize immediate clarity over flashy design.
Always.
We have to stop letting our desire to look cool interfere with our customers' ability to actually understand us.
Don't make them work for it, because they won't.
Right, they will just leave.
Exactly.
And that idea, not making the user work for it, that connects so perfectly to the next psychological hurdle we need to discuss.
Yes, it does.
Because making the user work, it takes many forms. Sometimes it's making them wait for a headline to appear,
Right.
but other times it's doing the exact opposite. Sometimes we make them work by giving them way too much to do all at once.
Ah, yes. The paradox of choice.
It's a classic.
This is where we see the concept of a confused mind really put to the ultimate test.
So the data outlines a test where a page with 25 different options was pitted against a vastly simplified design.
Right.
They basically took a page crammed with choices,
Yeah.
Different products, different links, different paths the user could take.
A total mess of options.
Yeah, and they ruthlessly stripped it down to just a handful of options.
And the results speak for themselves, really.
They do. Cutting down those 25 options yielded a 21% increase in the overall conversion rate,
A 21% jump,
just by taking things away.
just by removing options.
Let me use an analogy here because I think every single person listening has experienced this specific type of anxiety.
Let's hear it.
It is exactly like walking into a massive, sprawling diner.
Oh, I know where this is going.
You sit down, you're hungry, you're excited, and then the waiter hands you a menu that looks like a phone book. It's 20 pages long, it's laminated, it has tiny font, they have Greek food, Italian, Mexican, pancakes, steak, sushi.
Sushi at a diner is a red flag anyway.
Right. And a whole page dedicated to just different types of French fries.
It's a culinary nightmare disguised as abundance.
Exactly. What happens to you at that table? You get anxiety.
Huge anxiety.
You spend 20 minutes frantically flipping pages, terrified you were going to make the wrong choice.
Right, you're sweating.
If I get the lasagna, what if the fajitas were better? What if the sushi here is terrible?
It probably is.
Right. You are overwhelmed, and 9 times out of 10, you end up just ordering a grilled cheese sandwich or a burger because your brain just short-circuits.
Right. You default to the safest, most familiar, least risky option.
Exactly. But then compare that to going to a high-end, curated restaurant.
A totally different experience.
You sit down, and they hand you a piece of heavy cardstock. The menu is literally 1 page. There are 3 appetizers, 4 entrees, 2 desserts. That diner menu gave you a low-grade panic attack, But this fixed menu gives you confidence.
because you trust the chef.
Right. You trust that whatever you pick from those 4 entrees is going to be spectacular because they've done the curating for you.
That is a flawless analogy, really.
Yeah.
And it perfectly illustrates the neurobiology of what is happening.
Okay, break it down for me.
What you are describing, that diner menu anxiety, is what psychologists and UX designers call cognitive load.
Cognitive load. Let's dig into that. What is actually happening in my head when I see those 25 options on a web page?
Well, the human brain is an incredibly powerful organ, obviously, but it is also an absolute energy hog.
It burns a lot of calories.
Huge amounts. It consumes about 20% of your body's total energy.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah, so because of this, the brain has evolved to be fiercely protective of its energy reserves. It naturally wants to conserve calories whenever possible.
It wants to be lazy.
Exactly. Now, every single choice you present to a user on a page requires a complex sequence of mental energy.
Okay.
The brain has to process the option, physically read the text, evaluate it against the other 24 options.
That's a lot of math.
Right, and then try to predict the future outcome of choosing that specific path.
So 25 options means 25 separate, complex mental evaluations.
Exactly. It is absolutely exhausting for the brain.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
Right. When you present 25 options, you think you are offering freedom.
You think you're being helpful.
You think you're being generous, making sure everyone gets exactly what they want.
But you are offering freedom.
No, you are offering a chore. You are handing them a heavy mental burden.
Wow.
You are making them do the work of the chef in your restaurant analogy.
Here are all the ingredients. Figure it out yourselves.
Yes, exactly that. And because the brain is inherently lazy in its quest for efficiency, when it gets overwhelmed by that massive cognitive load, it defaults to the easiest possible action.
Just like me ordering the grilled cheese at the diner.
Exactly like that.
But online, there isn't a grilled cheese option. Like, the easiest possible action online is just hitting the back button.
Or closing the tab entirely.
Right.
The user doesn't consciously sit there and say, I'm overwhelmed by cognitive load. Let me take a deep breath, get a cup of coffee, and power through these 25 choices.
Nobody does that.
No, they just feel a vague sense of unease. They say, I'll figure this out later.
And in the digital world, we all know I'll look at this later means never.
Absolutely never.
It's so true. I'll look at this later is the death knell of conversion.
It is.
So the practical takeaway for you listening right now is to aggressively streamline the decisions you are asking people to make.
Ruthlessly.
Look at your website. Look at your sales pitch. Look at the pitch deck you are taking to investors. Edit your offers ruthlessly.
Are you presenting them with a diner menu, hoping they find something they like?
Right. Or are you acting as the expert curator, guiding them down a single, clear, confident path?
Curation is a service.
I love that. Curation is a service.
When you remove options, you aren't limiting your customer. You are protecting their mental energy so they can actually make a decision.
I feel like we all need to hear that, especially entrepreneurs.
Really do.
Because we are so passionate about what we do. We want to be everything to everyone.
Right.
We want to show off all our features, all our pricing tiers, all our add-ons, and we end up paralyzing the exact people we are trying to help.
It's the curse of knowledge. You know your 25 options intimately so they don't overwhelm you. You totally forget what it's like to see them for the very first time.
That is so true. Okay, let's review the journey we've taken our hypothetical user on so far.
Let's do it.
We've made the form conversational and contextual with our Mad Lib style, eliminating that defensive privacy friction.
Yeah. We
We stopped the headline from moving, prioritizing visual clarity and matching their natural reading rhythm. And we removed the clutter by cutting down our 25-item diner menu to a curated list, eliminating decision fatigue.
have completely smoothed the path.
Smooth as glass. So now how do we actually get them to click the final button?
Ah, the button.
The button.
This brings us to one of the most famous and perhaps most fiercely debated micro tweaks in the history of conversion rate optimization.
Button color.
Button color.
It seems so incredibly trivial, almost petty compared to the psychology of choice we just talked about.
It sounds silly, honestly.
But the impact is massive. The data introduces a simple test conducted by Dan McGrady from a site called dmix.ca.
A great test.
He did one thing. He changed a sign-up button from green to red.
A classic A-B split test. The exact same page, the exact same offer, the exact same words.
Just a different color on the button.
Just the color.
And the results, the shift from the green button to the red button increased conversion rates by 34%.
A 34% lift.
That is crazy.
Just by swapping a hex code. Literally just changing the digital 6-digit color tag in the background code from a green hue to a red hue.
And conversions jumped by a third.
Jumped by a third.
Okay, I am going to be honest. I am incredibly incredulous about this one.
You and everyone else.
It flies in the face of everything we are taught.
It does.
We are conditioned from birth to understand color in a specific way. From the time we are toddlers playing with toy cars, we are taught the universal language of traffic lights.
Green means go.
Green means proceed. It means safety, success, wealth.
And red means stop.
Red means danger, error, warning, do not enter. How on earth did a red button, a literal universal stop sign, win a test where the entire goal is to get people to go?
It is entirely counterintuitive.
Totally backwards.
In fact, if you pitch this to a traditional branding agency, they'll probably laugh you right out of the room.
They absolutely would.
But that is only if you look at it through the narrow lens of societal conditioning and symbolic meaning.
Okay, so what's the other lens?
If we synthesize the why here, if we look at the raw neurology of how the eye actually perceives a web page, it is highly likely that this result has absolutely nothing to do with the inherent symbolic meaning of the color red.
Okay, you have my attention. Then what is it about? If it's not red means stop, what is the brain reacting to?
It's about visual contrast.
Yeah.
And the power of pattern interruption.
Pattern interruption.
Yes. Let's think about the average modern website design today.
Right.
Whether it's a corporate site, a software platform, or a popular blog, most web design leans heavily into cool, neutral colors.
That's true. Lots of blues, whites, light grays.
Maybe some soft greens.
Yeah.
Brands use these colors because they want to project an aura of trustworthiness, calm, and professional stability.
Yeah, if you look at Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, most banks, there's a whole lot of blue out there.
Tons of blue, exactly. Now, if a website is mostly composed of cool colors, a blue header, a white background, gray text, you put a green button on that page, what happens?
Well, it matches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From a color theory perspective, that green button harmonizes perfectly with the rest of the design.
Oh, I see.
It sits on the cool side of the color wheel. It blends in. It's polite. It doesn't rock the boat.
It just becomes part of the background scenery.
Right. But a red button.
A red button clashes.
Red is on the complete opposite side of the color wheel. A bright red button on a soft blue and white website screams for attention.
It really does.
It is a visual violation of the page's color palette. It breaks the visual monotony completely.
It disrupts the expectations.
Exactly. The human eye, just like we discussed with the moving headline, is evolutionarily drawn to contrast.
Drawn to anomalies.
Yes. Before the conscious brain even has time to process the symbolic word stop or go, the visual cortex registers a stark anomaly in the pattern.
It's just a physical reaction.
It fires a signal that basically says, look right here, this is completely different from everything else.
Wow.
The red button won the test, not because red means submit, but because the red button was physically impossible to ignore.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
It changes how you see everything online.
It really makes me realize how much of a trap best practices can be.
Oh, best practices are often just everyone making the same mistake together.
Exactly. Everyone in the industry says green means go, so every single designer makes their buttons green.
Yep.
And because every button is green, green buttons become the expected pattern. They become completely invisible.
We essentially create banner blindness for our own call to action buttons.
That is precisely what happens. You habituate your user to ignore the most important element on your entire page.
It's tragic, honestly.
So the practical takeaway here is that you have to brutally question industry standards.
Question everything.
And so-called best practices. Sometimes the counterintuitive choice, the choice that actively violates the branding guidelines, is the exact choice that forces people to wake up and pay attention.
That's spot on. And it also means that context is everything.
What do you mean?
Well, if someone listening to this right now goes and changes their button to red.
Like immediately pauses the podcast and updates their site.
Right. But their entire website design is already warm. Like it's heavily orange, yellow, and red. Then a red button is going to be the one that blends in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. In that specific scenario, a bright green button might actually be the contrasting element that creates the pattern interrupts and wins the test.
That is such a good point.
You aren't ever testing the color in isolation. You are testing the contrast of that color against its environment.
That completely blows up the idea of a universal right color. There is no magic color.
Not at all.
It's just about being the loudest visual element in the room.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've broken the visual pattern. We've got their attention focused squarely on the button using high contrast.
They are looking at the button.
But getting someone to physically click that button isn't just about the visual color.
No, it's not.
It's about the promise made right above it, right? It's about the words we use to close the deal.
And this is where we get into the subtle, deeply psychological, structural mechanics of language.
I love this stuff.
The tense of specificity.
Okay, the data unpacks a really fascinating three-way split test regarding headlines and the specific tense they use to make a promise.
It's a great test.
Let me read these three headlines out loud so everyone listening can really hear the subtle differences, because they do sound very similar at first glance.
Go for it. Let's hear them.
Okay, headline number 1 uses the future tense. It says, discover how you can grow your blog to 10,000 plus subscribers in just 12 months.
Future tense. Okay.
Headline number 2 is essentially past tense, focusing on a specific historical case study. It says, discover how this very blog grew to 10,000 plus subscribers in just 12 months.
Past tense.
Right. And then headline number 3 shifts to the present tense. It says, simple email tips putting money in bank accounts right now.
Past, future, and present. It is a linguistic battle of time.
A battle of time. And the data shows that the present tense, the right now headline, was the clear, undeniable winner.
This is perhaps my absolute favorite insight from this entire chapter.
Really? Why this one?
Because the psychological and evolutionary theory behind it is profound.
Okay, break it down.
The source text actually explains the theory behind this victory perfectly, and I want to highlight the exact philosophy Russel Brunson uses to explain this.
Let's hear it.
The gist of it is this. Things that occurred in the past are expired and no longer valid. Things that are to happen in the future are unproven and hard to believe.
Expired and unproven.
Yes. Let's break down why our brains automatically react that way.
Please.
When you tell a user what happened in the past, like, look how this blog grew last year, their subconscious defense mechanism instantly kicks in.
Right, they get skeptical.
They think, well, that worked back then for them in that specific economy with those specific conditions.
But times have changed.
Exactly. The algorithm has changed. That opportunity has expired.
It's like that old financial disclaimer we hear on commercials. Past performance is not indicative of future results.
Yes. We inherently know that past success doesn't guarantee our own success.
Makes total sense.
So then we try the future tense. Here is how you will grow your blog.
Which sounds great, right?
It sounds great, but when you tell them what will happen in the future, a different type of friction kicks in. Skepticism.
Right, because I don't know you.
Human beings are deeply skeptical of future promises because the future is inherently unknowable.
The brain says, you don't know me, you don't know my work ethic, you can't guarantee that outcome.
Exactly. It's unproven.
But the present tense avoids both of those traps. Putting money in bank accounts right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
because right now is currently happening.
It's active.
It doesn't rely on historical conditions, and it doesn't ask you to take a massive leap of faith into an unknown future.
It just is.
It feels indisputable. It feels like an undeniable, objective truth that is occurring in the world at this very second.
I love this concept so much. It makes me think of how we consume a weather report.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Think about it. If you turn on the local news, you don't really care that it rained yesterday, right?
Not at all.
That's in the past. It's expired. You didn't get wet today, so who cares?
Right.
And if the meteorologist says it might rain tomorrow afternoon, you are inherently skeptical.
Because they're wrong half the time anyway.
Exactly. You think, well, they're wrong half the time. I'll probably be fine. I'll risk it.
You discount the future risk.
But if someone bursts into the room you are sitting in right now and shouts, hey, it is pouring rain outside right now, what do?
You immediately look for an umbrella.
You grab your coat. You take immediate action because the reality is present and undeniable.
That is a phenomenal encapsulation of temporal psychology.
It just makes it so obvious.
The present tense creates a sense of immediate truth and undeniable urgency. It perfectly bridges that massive gap between skepticism and belief.
Wow.
You aren't asking the user to trust a future promise, and you aren't asking them to rely on a past success.
Right.
You are inviting them to participate in a current, ongoing reality.
The practical takeaway here is huge, and it applies to literally anyone communicating a message.
Everywhere. All the time.
Whether you are writing a sales email, pitching a product to a client, or just writing a headline for a blog post, anchor your promises and your communications in the right now.
Make it a current event.
Don't say, our software will save your team time. That's unproven.
Right.
And don't say, our software saved company X time last year. That's expired.
Exactly.
Say, our software is saving teams just like yours time right now.
It completely changes the energetic frequency of the sentence.
It really does.
It moves from a pitch to a statement of undeniable fact.
Okay, we have covered some serious, dense ground here today.
You really have a lot of psychology.
We've talked about the conversational power of Mad Libs forms. We've explored the cognitive friction of animated headlines.
The dreaded saccade interruption.
Right. We've navigated the paralysis caused by the 25-option diner menu. We've disrupted visual patterns with high-contrast red buttons.
Breaking the cool blue monotony.
And we've anchored our promises in the undeniable truth of the present tense.
A full masterclass.
So, if we were to take a step back, look at all of this data, and tie all 5 of these key ideas together, what is the soul of this chapter? What is the one core philosophy that unites all these tests?
If we synthesize everything we've discussed, all of these seemingly disparate, random tests point to one unified, highly memorable insight.
Okay, what is it?
The soul of this chapter, and really the secret to all digital interaction, is cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease.
Yes. Every single winning test we explored today worked for one primary reason.
It removed a micro barrier in the user's brain.
Exactly. Conserve their mental energy.
Let's track that.
Turning a sterile, demanding coal booth form into a Mad Lib story removed the barrier of emotional justification.
The amygdala can calm down.
Right. Stopping a moving headline removed the physical barrier of visual processing and broken reading rhythms.
Less work for the eyes.
Cutting 25 choices down to a curated few removed the heavy barrier of decision fatigue.
No more diner menu panic.
Popping a red button on a cool page removed the barrier of visual monotony and habituation.
Waking them up.
And using present tense language removed the emotional barrier of skepticism.
Wow. It's all about clearing the runway.
Exactly. Friction is the silent killer of action.
The absolute enemy.
Every single time you make a user think just a little too hard, or wait just a second too long, or doubt your promise for even a moment, you add friction.
And friction accumulates.
It does. But if you can smooth the path, if you can achieve true cognitive ease, where the user feels safe, guided, and clear, the results will follow.
Those massive 30 and 40% increases we talked about.
They naturally, inevitably follow.
That is so powerful. Smooth the path and the results follow.
That's the secret.
Well, now that you know how to magically increase your clicks with a conversational Mad Libs form and a high contrast button, you absolutely won't want to miss our next deep dive.
Oh, the next one is a favorite of mine.
We are going to be exploring how a simple, seemingly innocent hello bar at the top of a website can unexpectedly monetize thousands of daily visitors without them ever feeling like they're being sold to.
It's brilliant.
And as you go about your week, I want you to look at your own business, your own website, or even just how you communicate with your family and your colleagues via email.
Ask yourself this one critical question.
Where are you unintentionally forcing people to read a 25-option menu? And how can you curate that experience into a simple, friction-free Mad Libs conversation? Imagine you're standing in the cereal aisle of, like, a massive grocery store.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right, you just need breakfast. But staring back at you is this giant wall of, I don't know, 150 brightly colored boxes.
Yeah, it's totally overwhelming.
It really is. You've got high fiber, gluten-free, keto-friendly, sugar-coated, marshmallow-infused, plus all the store brands and premium brands.
It's endless variations of basically the same thing.
Exactly. And so you stand there for like 5 solid minutes, shifting your weight, scanning the shelves. Your brain is just trying to process the nutritional values versus the prices.
Trying to optimize the cereal choice.
Right. And the overwhelm just creeps in. So what do you actually do? You grab the exact same boring box of oatmeal you buy every single week and you just walk out.
Yep. The default choice. Every time.
Exactly. Now, here is the terrifying question for anyone running a business today. What if you were accidentally doing this exact same thing to your customers on your website?
Oh, that is such a good question. And the scary part is most businesses are definitely doing this.
Right. What if giving your customers exactly what they think they want, or, all the options, all the details, all the different packages, is the exact reason they are actively refusing to die from you?
It's a scenario that plays out, literally millions of times a day across the internet.
Wow.
Yeah,
Millions.
easily. Because we have this deeply ingrained cultural assumption, especially in business, that more choices inherently equal a better customer experience.
Right, like I'm empowering the customer.
Exactly. We think we're doing the consumer a massive favor by giving them total control and infinite variety, but the data we're unpacking today just completely shatters that assumption.
I am so ready for this.
Yeah, so today we are diving into a chapter titled Don't Give Me So Many Choices from
Hmm.
Russell Brunson's dossier, which is called 108 Proven Split Test Winners.
Such a great source.
It really is. And what we are going to see, looking closely at these pages, is that human psychology just doesn't scale the way we think it does when it comes to options.
So for you listening right now, whether you're an entrepreneur trying to scale a startup, a digital marketer running campaigns, or, just someone trying to get people to take literally any kind of action online,
Right. Any action at all.
you are about to learn how radically simplifying your digital presence can instantly boost your bottom line. We're going to break down the raw, counterintuitive numbers from real-world split tests today.
And just to make sure we're all on the same page with the terminology here,
Good call.
a split test is basically when you take your web traffic and you divide it. So half the visitors see version A and half see version B.
Right.
Then you just step back and let the raw math tell you which one actually convinced people to, pull out their credit cards.
And that is the crucial distinction for this deep dive. We aren't just sitting around a whiteboard debating marketing theory.
No, not at all.
We aren't guessing what human beings might hypothetically do in a perfect world. We are looking at hard data that strips away all of those assumptions.
Which is so refreshing, honestly. Because often, the things we firmly believe will increase conversions actually destroy them.
Which brings us to the first massive test in this data set. Let's look at what we can call the paradox of choice.
I love that phrase.
Set the scene for us here. What exactly were they testing in this first scenario?
So the team was analyzing a standard landing page.
Mm-hmm.
They were just looking to optimize its overall conversion rate.
Okay, standard optimization stuff.
Right. And they started with their control page. The control is, simply the original version. It's the baseline they're trying to beat with the test.
Makes sense.
So this original control page featured 25 different clickable options. And get this, they were located entirely above the fold.
Wait. Above the fold being like the very first thing you see on your screen before you even touch your mouse or swipe down on your phone.
Exactly. Before you scroll at all.
That is the most valuable prime real estate on any digital platform.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me they crammed 25 different decisions into that one single space?
I know, it sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. 25 options.
That's just...
But before we judge the design too harshly, think about how common this actually is in the wild.
Is it really that common?
No, absolutely. If you go audit a typical corporate homepage right now, you will easily count 25 links.
Okay, prove it. Walk me through what those would even be.
Sure. So you have the main logo in the corner, right?
Yeah.
That routes home.
Okay, that's one.
Then an About Us link, a contact link, our mission, that's 4.
Right.
Then you usually have a drop-down menu for products, a drop-down for services,
Yeah.
a blog link, maybe a career page if they're hiring.
We're already at 8 or 9.
Right. Then you have all the social media icons lined up at the top. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Oh, man. Yeah, those little icons.
Plus maybe a newsletter sign-up box, a search bar, a shopping cart icon.
Okay, I see it now.
And finally, somewhere buried in all that mess, you have the actual Buy Now button they actually want you to click.
When you list it out like that, it sounds like an absolute nightmare for the user. But I actually know exactly why business owners do it.
Oh, totally. It comes from a place of fear, usually.
Exactly. There is this inherent fear that if someone comes to the site specifically looking for the company's Twitter page and they can't find it immediately, they will just bounce.
Right. We might lose them.
Yeah. So out of fear of missing a single microscopic interaction, the business owner just throws every single piece of company information onto the front porch.
And that is the exact psychological trap right there. The business owner thinks they're providing a comprehensive service.
Yeah, being helpful.
Right. But to test this theory, the team in the book created a simplified variation of this landing page.
Okay, what did the simplified one look like?
They essentially took a machete to the design. They cut those 25 options down to just 5.
Wow, just 5 links total?
Just 5. And furthermore, they completely eliminated everything below the fold.
Wait, really?
Yep. You couldn't even scroll if you wanted to.
Yeah.
They boxed the visitor into a single highly focused screen with only 5 possible things to click.
That is so extreme. But it reminds me so much of the restaurant industry.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about the 25 option page, like walking into a massive chain restaurant, like something like the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
The menu is basically a phone book.
Exactly. You sit down and the waiter hands you a menu that is literally a spiral-bound novel. It's 20 pages long.
With a tiny font, too.
Yes. There are laminated inserts falling out, advertisements for signal drinks. You've got 60 different appetizers ranging from like egg rolls to nachos to pot stickers.
And you just stare at it blankly.
Right. You sit there for 20 minutes, flipping back and forth, trying to mentally calculate what you actually want, and your brain actually starts to hurt.
It genuinely does.
By the time the waiter comes back, the pressure is so high that you just panic. You're like, I'll just have a plain cheeseburger.
Yep.
You experience total decision fatigue.
And decision fatigue is a very real, documented cognitive limitation in psychology. Every single time you weigh an option, you burn a tiny microscopic amount of mental energy.
And contrast that with the 5 option page they tested. That's like walking into an exclusive high-end omakase sushi bar.
Oh, I love that comparison.
Right. There is no spiral-bound menu. There are no laminated inserts. You just sit at a clean wooden counter. The chef looks you in the eye and says, I have 5 incredible cuts of fish today. Pick one.
And it doesn't feel restrictive at all when that happens.
Exactly. It actually feels premium. It feels guided.
Right.
It completely removes the anxiety of having to filter out 20 things you don't actually want, allowing you to just enjoy the experience of choosing between 5 great things.
That is a brilliant way to frame it, because that feeling of premium guidance is actually mathematically validated by the results of this split test.
Okay, hit me with numbers. I want to know how the sushi bar did against the Cheesecake Factory.
So they actually ran this exact scenario twice, just to ensure the data was statistically significant and not a fluke.
Smart.
In the first test, the original control page, the one with the 25 options, had a conversion rate of 24.4%.
Which honestly isn't terrible to begin with. Depending on the traffic temperature, a 24% conversion rate is pretty solid.
It is. It's actually quite good.
Yeah.
But when they sent traffic to the simplified 5-option page, the conversion rate jumped to 29.6%.
Whoa. So a raw bump of over 5%.
Exactly.
When you are dealing with thousands or hundreds of thousands of visitors, a 5% jump in your baseline conversion is transformative.
Oh, it's massive.
I mean, that is entire salaries paid just by deleting a few Twitter icons.
Seriously. And it held up in the second test as well.
Okay, what were the numbers there?
The control page for test 2 was converting at 18.9%. The simplified page pushed that up to 22.7%.
Wow. Okay.
So when you calculate the average improvement across the testing environments, simply removing those 20 extra options yielded a massive 20.45% relative increase in conversions.
Wait, I really want to pause here and dig into the mechanics of this because I want to understand why the human brain is reacting this way.
Sure, let's break it down.
Because on a purely logical level, if I want to buy a product, why would the mere presence of an About Us link or an Instagram icon physically stop me from clicking Add to Cart?
Right, it seems harmless.
Exactly. It shouldn't stop me. So what is actually happening under the hood there?
It really comes down to a principle known in user experience design as cognitive load. And this is heavily influenced by something called Hicks' law.
Hicks' law. Okay, what is that?
Hicks' law essentially states that the time and energy it takes for a person to make a decision increases logarithmically as the number and complexity of choices increase.
So simply put, more choices literally slows down the brain.
It slows it down, and more importantly, it demands more fuel. When a visitor lands on your page, you have to assume they arrive with a finite, almost depleted battery of mental energy.
Because they've been scrolling, working, and thinking all day long already.
Exactly. We are all tired. So every single link, button, and image you put on that page requires a micro-calculation from the user.
Like a tiny mental checklist.
Right. They subconsciously think, should I click the Twitter icon? No. Should I read the About page? Not yet. Should I check the blog? Maybe later.
Oh, I see.
Every extra link is a potential exit ramp for their attention. By removing 20 options, you aren't just cleaning up the visual design, you are aggressively directing their attention.
You are forcefully closing the exit ramps.
Exactly. You're keeping them on the main highway.
So if my ultimate goal is to get the customer to drive straight down the highway to the checkout cart, I am actively sabotaging myself if I build 25 scenic overlooks on the side of the road.
Yes. That's it, exactly.
I'm basically inviting them to pull over, get distracted by the view, and completely forget where they were driving in the first place.
That is the perfect visualization. You really have to take responsibility for the customer's journey. Don't make them do the hard work of figuring out what is important.
Right.
So for anyone trying to apply this today, the immediate action step is a ruthless audit.
Yes, audit everything.
Pull up your landing page, your sales proposal, heck, even the signature in your email.
Oh, email signatures are the worst for this. People have 10 links in there.
They really do. Count the clickable options.
Yeah.
If you have 10 different links pointing in 10 different directions, you are bleeding conversions.
Just hemorrhaging them.
Cut them down to the essential 5, or ideally even fewer. Guide your customer with total confidence.
Okay, so we have firmly established that extra links act as exit ramps that distract the brain. But, and this is a big but, what about words? What about actual information?
Now we're getting into the really controversial stuff.
Right, because this leads us to the second test in the data, and I have to admit, I want to push back on this one right out of the gate.
I figured you might. Most people do.
Well, if a customer is trapped in that overwhelming car dealership scenario, for example, maybe they just want the facts.
Sure.
My natural instinct, and I bet almost every business owner listening feels the exact same way, is that an informed consumer is a better consumer.
It sounds so logical.
Right. If I am selling a high-ticket item or something complex like software, the buyer is going to want all the details. They want the features, the technical specs, the backstory of the founder, the frequently asked questions.
They want the whole encyclopedia.
Exactly. They need all of that data to feel comfortable handing over their hard-earned money.
It is a deeply, deeply logical assumption. And as business owners, we are just deeply in love with our own products.
We are. We really are.
We know every nuance, every feature, every ounce of sweat that went into building it. So we assume that if a little bit of persuasion works to get someone interested, a massive amount of persuasion will lock in the sale forever.
Right. We try to bludgeon the customer with value.
We really do. But the split test data from the book tells a completely different, almost shocking story.
Okay, tell me about this second test. Because I remain highly skeptical that taking away product information is going to help anyone sell more.
All right, so they ran a test on a dedicated sales page. Now, just to be clear, this wasn't a squeeze page just asking for an email address.
Okay.
This was a page designed to get a financial transaction. They wanted people to buy right then and there.
High stakes. Got it.
The page had the core sales pitch, obviously. But it also featured several extra blocks of information further down.
What kind of blocks?
These were dedicated informational boxes that had been carefully written, heavily edited, and added to the page specifically to give the customer more context, more details, and more reasons to buy.
So, typical stuff. Maybe a box detailing the specific materials used to make the product, or a deep dive into the lifetime warranty, or a comparison chart against competitors.
Exactly. Things completely designed to be helpful to the buyer. So they tested this original detailed page against a stripped-down version where those extra informational blocks were entirely removed.
Wait. Just deleted. They didn't rewrite them to be punchier or move them to another page. They just hit the backspace key and wiped them off the internet.
Completely gone, just white space where they used to be.
Wow. Okay.
And the results are staggering.
Give it to me.
The control page, the one heavily loaded with all the extra information and helpful details, was converting at a modest 1.6%.
Okay, 1.6%.
When they ran the exact same traffic to the simplified version with the information blocks removed, the conversion skyrocketed to 2.88%.
Wait, let me do that math in my head.
Yeah.
Jumping from 1.6% to 2.88%. That is an 80.18% increase in conversion.
Yep, over 80%.
You are telling me they almost doubled their total sales volume simply by shutting up.
Literally.
Yeah.
An almost 80% increase in revenue from that exact same traffic source just by deleting paragraphs of well-written text.
Okay, I am forced to concede to the numbers here. The math doesn't lie. But you have to explain the human behavior side of this to me.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's crazy because as a consumer, I feel like I am an information gatherer. Before I buy a new microphone for the studio or a new laptop, I read reviews. I look at the specs.
Right.
Why on earth would taking away information make a buyer 80% more likely to pull out their credit card? It just feels completely backwards to everything we are taught about modern sales.
To understand this, we have to kind of map out the psychological timeline of the buyer's journey.
Okay.
There is a distinct, measurable tipping point. I want you to imagine a graph in your head right now.
All right. Picturing it.
The horizontal axis at the bottom is the amount of information provided,
Okay.
and the vertical axis going up is the likelihood to buy.
Got it.
Now, when a prospect first lands on your page, they are at 0 on both. But as you start providing information, your headline, your core offer, the main benefits, the line on the graph starts to go up.
Because you are answering their primary questions. You're building value and establishing trust.
Exactly. And that part makes perfect sense.
Right. I have to actually know what the thing is before I can buy it.
Right. But eventually, that customer reaches the peak of the curve. They are convinced.
The tipping point.
Yes. The core value proposition has resonated with their pain point, and they have internally decided, yes, I want this.
They are completely sold. The mental check has been written in their head.
They are sold. But here is where businesses destroy their own success.
Oh, this is the trap.
Yes. Instead of recognizing that the customer has reached the peak of the graph and just presenting the checkout cart, the business keeps talking.
Oh, no.
Any additional text, any new feature you put in front of them after they have reached that peak isn't helpful anymore. It becomes active friction.
Wow.
The data points out that you might literally be overselling your customers.
Overselling, meaning you are continuing to pitch someone who has already fundamentally agreed to buy from you.
Precisely. And when you keep throwing new information blocks at a convinced buyer, you aren't just wasting their time.
What are you doing then?
You are introducing new variables that they hadn't even considered yet.
Oh.
You force them to process new data. You might bring up a highly technical feature that they don't fully understand.
And suddenly, that lack of understanding creates a micro moment of confusion.
Exactly. And as we established with the paradox of choice a few minutes ago, a confused mind always says no.
Oh, this makes so much sense now. It is exactly like being trapped at a car dealership.
Yes, the classic car salesman mistake.
Imagine you go in, right? You test drive a new sedan. It handles beautifully, the seats are comfortable, the price is totally right.
You're ready to go.
You look at the salesperson and you say, I love it, I'll take it, where do I sign?
The dream scenario.
But instead of pulling out the paperwork and handing you a pen, the salesperson gets overly excited. They say, great, but before we go to the finance office, I really want to show you this glossy informational brochure about the specialized independent suspension and how our torque ratios compare to our top 3 competitors in wet weather conditions.
And instantly, your psychological state shifts.
Completely. I'm suddenly standing there on the lot thinking, wait a minute. Do I need to care about torque ratios? I live in a rainy climate. Is this car bad in wet weather?
Maybe I didn't do enough research.
Maybe I shouldn't buy this today. Maybe I need to go home, spend 3 hours on YouTube researching independent suspensions, and really think about it.
And then what happens?
I walk off the lot, and the dealership loses a $30,000 sale.
Because the salesperson couldn't stop pitching.
They just wouldn't shut up.
They introduced a variable that required more cognitive load, which completely derailed the momentum of the purchase.
The extra information didn't add value. It introduced doubt.
You literally talked them out of the sale.
That is so powerful. So for everyone listening right now, this is a massive audit you need to perform on your own sales process today.
Absolutely.
Are you selling past the close? Look at your sales pages. Read them through the eyes of a convinced buyer.
That's the key. Read it as if you already want to buy.
Once the core pitch is made, once the primary pain point is solved, stop talking, just show them the cart.
Give them the absolute basic information they need to feel safe. Maybe a money-back guarantee or a secure checkout badge, and then get completely out of their way.
And this transition brings up an incredibly important secondary question.
Oh, definitely. Because now we have a new problem.
Right. We have established through raw data that we need to drastically reduce the number of options, and we need to severely cut back on the amount of text.
Right.
But that leaves us with a structural problem. How do we arrange the few choices and the few words we actually do decide to keep?
Because the visual arrangement itself can be a massive trap if you aren't careful.
Which brings us to the third test in the dossier, and I find this one absolutely fascinating because it completely shatters a very popular, almost sacred dogma in the marketing world.
Yes, we are looking at the Mind Valley Order menu test.
Let's set the stage for this one for the listener. We're looking at an order page for products from a company called Mind Valley.
A huge personal development company.
Right. And they typically offer their educational products in a very standard 3-tier pricing model.
The classic good, better, best.
Exactly. You have the silver package, which is the cheapest option, and consists of just the digital downloadable version of the course.
Okay.
Then you have the gold package in the middle, which is the physical product, CDs, DVDs, workbooks, actually shipped to your house.
Right.
Finally, there is the Platinum Collection, the highest price point, which is the premium combination of the two. You get the immediate digital download plus the physical product shipped to you.
It is a pricing architecture that almost everyone has seen 1,000 times across software and e-commerce.
Super common.
But the creators of this specific checkout page wanted to maximize their revenue by pushing people toward that higher-priced Platinum package.
Which makes sense, higher average order value.
Right. To do this, they decided to implement a well-known psychological principle called the primacy effect.
Okay, let's unpack this for the listener, because the primacy effect is something that gets thrown around in marketing seminars and psychology blogs constantly. What exactly is the theory behind it?
The theory of the primacy effect suggests that human behavior, and specifically consumer valuation, is heavily influenced by how multiple items are sequentially arranged in a list or a catalog.
Okay.
It's anchored in the fact that in Western cultures, we are conditioned from birth to read from left to right.
Right, just like reading a book.
Therefore, the theory dictates that the first thing our eyes see on the far left side of a page sets the psychological anchor. It sets the baseline expectation for everything else that follows.
Meaning, if I see a really expensive price first on the left, everything after it looks like a pretty good deal.
Exactly.
Or, conversely, if the first thing I see is perceived as high value and premium, it elevates the status of the entire lineup.
Spot on. Marketers use the primacy effect all the time to push higher-priced items by intentionally placing them first in the reading sequence, assuming it radically alters the perceived value of the choices.
So, applying this textbook theory to the Mindvalley page, they rearranged the order of their 3 packages.
Yes, they flipped the script.
Instead of going cheap to expensive, left to right, they inverted it. They put the most expensive, most comprehensive Platinum package on the far left, expecting the primacy effect to work its magic and give them a massive boost in higher tier sales.
That was the expectation. I mean, they had read the academic research, they understood the psychological theory, and they confidently applied it to their order menu layout.
And what actually happened when the live traffic hit the page?
It was an absolute disaster.
Oh, no.
The new order menu, based entirely on this proven psychological principle, didn't just fail to increase conversions,
What'd it do?
it actively hurt their sales by a whopping 71.92%.
I just want to repeat that number so it sinks in for everyone listening. A 71.92% drop in sales.
Just devastating.
That isn't a small margin of error. That isn't a statistical anomaly based on, like, the time of day or a weekend slump.
No, not at all.
That is a catastrophic, business-ending failure if left unchecked. What on earth went wrong? If the psychology is sound, why did the execution fail so spectacularly?
This is where we have to separate academic theory from practical application. The failure comes down to understanding why a psychological principle works, not just knowing that it works in a vacuum.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The primacy effect relies entirely on a specific visual behavior. It requires the human eye to draw across a broad catalog of items. It requires a sequence.
It's like a journey.
Exactly. Think of a massive restaurant menu or a catalog with 50 items. Your eye has to travel across the page.
Right. It takes time for my eyes to physically scan across all that information. I process item 1, then item 2, then item 3.
But in the case of the Mindvalley page, there are only 3 options.
Ah, I think I see where this is going.
Because there were only 3 distinct packages placed side by side on the screen, the customer didn't need to scan them left to right like reading a long sentence in a book.
They didn't have to travel.
Right. The human eye and brain are incredibly efficient. The customer could perceive the entire 3-tier menu in a single, instantaneous glance.
Wow.
The data points out that this immediate visual perception completely canceled out the desired primacy effect due to what they call a lack of ascend.
Lack of ascend. That is a brilliant way to describe it. Let's dig into that visual scanning behavior for a second, because I think a lot of web designers get this horribly wrong.
They really do. They design for aesthetics, not for the eye.
When I look at a web page, my eyes don't smoothly track like a typewriter. They dart around in what researchers call saccades, looking for fixation points.
Right, jumping from point to point.
Often we scan in an F pattern or a Z pattern, but when I am presented with 3 distinct boxes grouped tightly together on a screen, My brain processes it as one single visual block.
Exactly.
I don't see box 1, then wait a second, then see box 2, then box 3. I see a single shape containing 3 elements all at once.
That's exactly. There was no journey for the eye to take. There was no left to right sequential discovery happening at all.
So the psychological trick was completely bypassed.
Because the brain processed all 3 options simultaneously, the anchor was never set.
The user just saw a weird layout.
Right. The customer just saw a jumbled, out-of-order pricing structure that didn't make intuitive sense. They're used to seeing low to high. So this inversion created, you guessed it, cognitive friction.
The psychological trick never even had a chance to trigger because the physical mechanics of the eye prevented it.
It is a perfect, albeit very expensive example of the danger of blindly following marketing best practices.
Which is the biggest, most urgent practical takeaway for you listening to this right now. You can read all the blogs you want.
Read all the books.
You can buy all the expensive marketing textbooks. But you must never just copy and paste a hack or a psychological theory onto your business just because an expert said it works.
No, never.
Context is literally everything. Just because the primacy effect works beautifully on a massive e-commerce site with hundreds of products or in a physical printed catalog does not mean it will work on your specific, highly condensed checkout page with 3 simple options.
You must always test.
Always. You have to let your specific raw data, not generalized theory, dictate your business decisions.
And that realization that context matters way more than rigid rules brings us to, perhaps, the most important caveat in this entire discussion about simplification.
Right, because I can hear people listening to this right now. I know exactly what they're thinking.
Oh, what's that?
They've heard about the massive 20% gains from cutting 20 options down to 5.
Yep.
They've heard about the insane 80% increase from deleting information text. And they are playfully thinking, okay, I get it. The secret to infinite wealth is just deleting everything on my website.
Just burn it all down.
Exactly. I am going to have a blank white page with one giant red button in the middle that just says, give me money.
If only human behavior were that simple, we'd all be billionaires.
Seriously.
But there is a vital, highly sensitive nuance to choice and simplification. We've talked extensively about how removing options reduces friction.
Right.
But sometimes, in very specific contexts, removing options doesn't just fail to help. It actively and aggressively hurts your conversions.
Let's talk about the Vigon test, because this one completely flips the script on everything we've just discussed for the last half hour.
It's the ultimate twist in the data.
What is the product and what was the exact scenario here?
So Vigon is a highly specific health and wellness product. It is an over-the-counter treatment designed to stop cold sores and herpes outbreaks.
Okay, so immediately we are dealing with a completely different category of commerce here.
Exactly. This isn't a t-shirt. On their main product page, the layout featured a primary sales video right at the top.
Standard layout so far.
And right below that video, front and center, was the primary call to action, a big add to cart button.
Perfect.
But just below that main button, the designers had included a row of horizontal navigation links.
Okay, stop right there. Based on literally everything we just learned, the 25 versus 5 test, the danger of overselling with information blocks, the absolute first instinct for any marketer looking at that page is to grab the digital machete and delete those extra links, right?
100%.
They are the very definition of exit ramps. They are visual distractions pulling the eye away from the add to cart button.
That is exactly what the optimization team thought too. They applied the rule we just learned.
They followed the playbook.
Right. They set up a split test where the control page had the extra navigation buttons and the test page removed those buttons located right below the video.
Expecting a huge win.
Expecting to see a massive boost in sales by removing the distractions and forcing the user to click the cart.
And what did the raw data actually reveal?
Removing those specific navigation buttons decreased sales by 31%.
A 31% drop. Just for cleaning up the page and applying the exact simplification rule we've been talking about.
Not a huge loss.
Why on earth did this happen? It feels like a direct contradiction to the first 2 tests.
It isn't a contradiction, though. It is an evolution of the rule. It adds critical context. You really have to think deeply about the nature of the product itself. Vigon.
Okay.
This isn't a $10 digital download about time management. This isn't a new pair of trendy sunglasses. It is a medical treatment for a highly sensitive, often embarrassing physical issue.
That's a huge distinction.
When a consumer is looking to buy something they're going to physically apply to their body to solve a medical problem, their threshold for skepticism is vastly higher.
The psychological stakes of the purchase are completely different. It's not an impulse buy.
Exactly. In this specific context, the customers genuinely needed a little more reassurance before they felt safe enough to initiate the transaction.
Safety, that is the magic word here. Safety.
If you look at the actual layout of that original Vigon page, those navigation buttons below the cart weren't just random links to a company blog or an Instagram page.
What were they?
They were highly specific links to pages titled Clinical Trials, Real Stories from Users, and Detailed Science, how it works.
Oh, wow. Okay, that changes the entire perspective.
Right. By stripping away those specific navigation buttons in the name of simplification, the team didn't just remove visual distractions. They accidentally removed the customer's primary tools for building trust.
So let's map this back to that graph of the buyer's journey we talked about earlier with the information blocks.
Let's do it.
When a customer is looking at a high-stakes product, whether it's a medical treatment, a massive financial investment, or even a complex software integration for their business, the peak of that curve is much higher and much harder to reach.
It takes way more fuel to get there.
Right. The primary sales video might get them interested, but it doesn't get them all the way to the peak. They haven't crossed the threshold of belief yet.
They're still climbing.
They need that heavy lifting. They actively want to see the clinical trials. They desperately need to read the real stories from other people who suffered from the same problem.
Precisely. The data shows that in this specific high-stakes scenario, the customers fundamentally required that extra layer of validation before they were willing to pull out their wallets.
So by deleting the buttons, you stranded them.
Yes. Stripping the page bare in an attempt to be minimal left them stranded on the slope of the graph without the definitive proof they needed to feel confident in the product.
So bringing this all back to your overarching strategy as a listener, the takeaway here is incredibly nuanced but deeply important.
It's the most important lesson of the chapter.
Simplification does not mean deleting trust.
Never delete trust.
You cannot just blindly hack away at your website. You have to deeply, intimately understand where your customer is in their emotional and psychological journey.
You have to know your buyer.
You have to ask yourself, are they buying a cheap, low-risk impulse item where speed is absolutely everything?
Like a phone case.
Right? Or are they making a sensitive, high-trust decision that requires real validation? You must absolutely remove the random distractions.
Get rid of them.
Get rid of the social media icons in the header. Delete the 20 irrelevant drop-down menu items. Stop talking about TORF ratios when they've already agreed to buy the car.
Exactly.
But never, ever remove the exact mechanisms your customer relies on to feel confident in saying yes.
If we step back and synthesize all of this data, the massive 20% gains from removing 20 options, the shocking 80% jump from deleting text blocks and stopping the oversell, the catastrophic 71% failure of misapplying the primacy effect, and the vital nuance of the Vigon trust buttons.
It's a lot of data.
It is. But it all points to one singular governing philosophy for this entire chapter of split tests. And that philosophy is clarity over quantity.
Clarity over quantity. I absolutely love that framing.
The ultimate goal isn't just to strip a website bare for the sake of, modern minimalism. Having a sleek, empty website is an aesthetic choice, not a strategic marketing choice.
Prettier doesn't mean more profitable.
Exactly. The true goal of a digital platform is to master the delicate, highly contextual art of removing friction.
Friction being the enemy of conversions.
And friction is defined as anything. A word, a button, a misplaced psychological trick that slows down or confuses the decision-making process unnecessarily.
Because as we said at the very beginning of this deep dive, a confused mind almost always says no.
Always.
But a confident mind says yes. Your entire job, your only real objective, is to give your audience the exact amount of information and the precise number of targeted choices they need to feel confident. Nothing more and nothing less.
Which leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to really mull over today.
I love a good thought experiment.
I want you to imagine that you are forced to log into your current website or look at your primary sales deck right now.
Okay, picturing it.
And a developer tells you that you absolutely have to delete 80% of the choices, 80% of the buttons, and 80% of the text.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. But the question is, which 20% would you keep to actually increase your sales?
Wow. That is a brutal but brilliant question to ask yourself.
It really focuses the mind.
It forces you to identify the absolute core of your value proposition. Find that 20%, protect it fiercely, and experiment with cutting away the rest. you might just find your conversions skyrocketing.
You really might.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Next time, we'll dive into another fascinating chapter of these testing labs to explore the surprising ways simple colors, like whether a checkout button is red, green, or yellow, can secretly manipulate our clicking habits on a subconscious level, and why choosing the aesthetically prettier option might secretly be costing you thousands of dollars a day.
It's going to be a good one.
You won't want to miss it.
Imagine for just a second that you are launching a new business. Like you have poured tens of thousands of dollars into this project.
Oh, easily. Usually more.
Right. And you've spent months, maybe even years of your life just meticulously perfecting the product itself.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Literally. And then you hire this top-tier graphic designer
Yeah.
to create a breathtakingly beautiful website. We are talking, award-winning aesthetics here.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, perfect color harmony, sleek negative space, elegant typography. You even shot this stunning cinematic sales video with drone footage and professional lighting.
I can picture it perfectly. It looks like $1 million.
Exactly. It is a modern masterpiece of digital commerce. So you finally hit publish, you launch the site, you wait for the notifications to roll in, and you were met with absolute deafening silence. Crickets.
Yeah, it is honestly the ultimate nightmare scenario for any entrepreneur or creator or even just someone trying to get a project off the ground internally at a company.
It really is.
You build what you believe is this perfect, frictionless trap, and absolutely no one is taking the bait. I mean, the bounce rate on the site is near 100%. The shopping carts remain totally empty, and that beautiful video you spent a fortune on.
The one with the drone footage.
Yeah, that one. It has an average watch time of 12 seconds.
Oh man, that hurts to even think about. But then it gets worse, because to add massive insult to injury, you do a little market research.
Always a dangerous game.
Right. You look across the internet and see a competitor in your exact same niche. You pull up their website, and it looks like it was coded in 1998 by a teenager in a basement.
Flashbacks to early GeoCities.
Yes. It features jarring neon colors, massive blocky fonts, the layout is super clunky, the images aren't perfectly aligned. I mean, it is objectively, undeniably ugly.
It's really awful to look at.
But then you find out they're pulling in millions of dollars. They're absolutely crushing your beautiful, logical, aesthetically perfect website in actual sales.
And that right there, that phenomenon, it exposes the core tension of human behavior. Because we carry around this immense cognitive bias,
What do you mean?
Well, we like to think of ourselves as deeply logical, aesthetic creatures. We really believe we make rational decisions based on beautiful, high-quality presentations and well-reasoned arguments.
Right, we think we're so sophisticated.
Exactly. But the data, the cold, hard, unfeeling numbers generated by tracking millions of actual user clicks, it paints a profoundly different picture of how human psychology actually operates in that split second of making a decision.
The moment of truth.
Yeah. The aesthetics of the boardroom, they just rarely survive the reality of the consumer's brain.
So for this deep dive, we are going to strip away every single assumption you have about what makes people click, what makes people buy, and frankly, what makes people take any kind of action.
We are getting into the weeds today.
We really are. We are diving into the fascinating, wildly counterintuitive, and sometimes just ruthless world of direct response marketing.
It is a wild world.
It is. And we are pulling back the curtain on this massive trove of data from a document called 108 Proven Split Test Winners, which was compiled by Russel Brunson and the team at .com Secrets Labs.
And the real value of this specific document lies in its methodology. This isn't a textbook filled with academic theories about consumer behavior.
No guessing involved.
Right. It isn't a collection of lofty opinions from ad executives sitting in a glass boardroom guessing what consumers might want based on some random focus group.
Focus groups are usually terrible anyway.
They really can be. But this is raw empirical data derived directly from split testing.
And for anyone listening who might not have run one, a split test is essentially the purest form of digital experimentation.
It's the scientific method for marketing.
Exactly. You take a web page, duplicate it, and make one single isolated change. So you might change the color of a headline or move a button from the bottom to the top. Then you send equal amounts of live traffic to both versions at the exact same time.
Half C version A, half C version B.
Right, and you just watch to see which one mathematically generates more revenue. It is quite literally Darwinian evolution applied to marketing.
Darwinian marketing. I love that. Only the strongest, highest converting pages survive.
So our mission today is to look purely at this hard data, to map out the real, proven frameworks of human psychology, and give you actionable tools you can apply immediately.
Whether you're building a website, pitching a project to your boss, or honestly, just trying to persuade someone in your everyday life.
Because, trying to build an argument or a digital storefront without understanding this baseline data. It's like putting on a blindfold, turning off all the lights in a pitch black room, and throwing darts into the void, just praying you hit a bullseye.
And the data operates as a light switch in that room. It illuminates exactly where the target is and maybe even more importantly, where it isn't.
Right?
But you should probably brace yourself because what the light reveals is often going to completely contradict your natural intuition and frankly, your sense of good taste.
Oh, absolutely. So let's start right at the atomic level of all this. Before we even consider how a page looks or the colors or the images, we have to look at the raw material of persuasion itself, which is the words.
The foundation of everything.
Yeah. Words trigger immediate subconscious psychological responses in the brain.
Mm.
And the data shows that the words we naturally assume are powerful, like the words we instinctively reach for when we want to sound impressive, they are actually the ones making us look like liars to our audience.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. So let's look at the power of specificity, particularly when it comes to numbers.
Yeah, this concept of specific numbers versus round guesses is a massive stumbling block for most communicators.
How so?
Well, in marketing, and honestly just in casual human conversation, we have this terrible, deeply ingrained habit of rounding up to the nearest clean number.
Oh, I do this all the time.
We all do. Like, if a software company has exactly 10,423 active users, the natural inclination of the marketing department is to put a big, bold, beautifully spaced headline on the homepage that says, join over 10,000 satisfied customers.
Right, because it just feels cleaner to the eye. It feels bigger.
And it rolls off the tongue so much better. 10,000, it sounds like a definitive milestone, like a neat little package of success.
Exactly. To the person writing it, it looks great.
Right, to the person writing it. But to the human brain reading that on a screen, the reaction is entirely different. It doesn't register as a milestone. It registers as marketing speak.
It sounds fake.
Yes, it sounds like hyperbole.
Mm.
The brain is this incredibly efficient filtering machine, and it instantly categorizes 10,000 as guess, an estimation, or worst of all, just a complete fabrication.
Because the roundness of the number basically signals that no one actually bothered to check the real data.
Exactly. But if that exact same headline is changed to read, join 10,423 satisfied customers, well, the psychological frame shifts completely.
Yeah, because my brain immediately assumes that if there are exactly 423 people sitting on top of that 10,000, somebody must be sitting at a desk somewhere actually counting them.
Precisely. The exact number implies precise data. It implies a spreadsheet exists somewhere with exactly 10,423 unique lines of data on it.
It makes it real.
It transforms a marketing claim, which people naturally distrust, into an undeniable fact, which people respect.
Wow.
The exact number carries the immense weight of truth, whereas the round number just carries the flimsy weight of a sales pitch. Specificity becomes the ultimate proxy for honesty.
I can completely see how that works in everyday life, too. Like if I ask a friend what they paid for a used car, and they casually say, oh, about 20 grand, I know they are estimating. And they might even be trying to sound a little cooler or wealthier than they are.
Exactly.
But if they look at me and say, I paid $19,850, I immediately believe that is the exact, literal amount of money that left their checking account. There is zero doubt.
It's bulletproof.
But wait, if exact numbers convert so much better and build all this implicit trust, what stops a marketer from just manufacturing weird, highly specific numbers? Like, saying, our coaching program will save you exactly $4,112, even if they just pulled that number out of thin air.
Ah, well, that is the danger of weaponizing psychological triggers without ethics. And it's a really crucial distinction to make here.
Oh, right, because I could see people abusing that.
Oh, they do. But the data absolutely does not suggest you should lie with specificity. While a fabricated specific number might temporarily bump your conversion rate today, it will eventually erode trust.
It'll catch up to you.
It always does. It increases your refund rates and ultimately destroys the brand's reputation when the reality doesn't match that highly specific promise.
So what's the actual takeaway then?
The actionable takeaway from the split test is that you should take the extra time to report your actual specific data rather than lazily rounding it up for the sake of simplicity.
Do the hard math.
Exactly. Find the exact average savings of your clients. Pinpoint the actual number of active subscribers on your email list. Stop rounding your achievements to zero-ended generalizations. You are actively robbing yourself of credibility just to make the sentence look a little prettier on the page.
Okay, so we anchor our claims in absolute specificity.
Yeah.
But the split tests go even deeper into the language itself, right? Like, it's not just the numbers you use, it is the fundamental tense of the words.
Past, present, or future.
Yeah. The researchers ran this fascinating test on a headline for an email marketing product. The original control headline read, "You're about to discover simple email tips." And they ran that against a variation shifted entirely into the present tense, which was simple email tips putting money in bank accounts right now.
I love that one.
That subtle shift in verb tense yielded a 24.2% increase in overall conversions. I mean, why does the brain care so much about grammatical tense?
It's wild, right? But this taps into a really profound element of how we perceive reality, risk, and the burden of proof. The underlying theory here revolves around cognitive load.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So when you write copy in the past tense, for example, "This system made me a millionaire last year," the reader's brain immediately views that as expired information.
Because it's already happened.
Right. It exists in the past. It might have worked for you back then under those specific market conditions, but like, will it work for me today in my unique circumstances?
It raises a lot of questions.
Exactly. The past tense inherently breeds doubt. It forces the reader to calculate the probability of history repeating itself.
It feels a bit like reading yesterday's newspaper. Like, the information might be factually accurate, but it feels fundamentally disconnected from what I need to do right this second.
Which is exactly why marketers usually rely heavily on the future tense instead. This is where I'd say 90% of advertising lives.
You are about to learn.
Yes, or "this software will save you hours," or "you will lose 10 pounds. The problem is the future is entirely unproven. It is a conditional statement.
It's a promise.
A promise that requires the consumer to take a massive leap of faith that it will eventually materialize. And human beings, from an evolutionary standpoint, are incredibly risk-averse creatures. We do not like leaps of faith.
We want a sure thing.
Always. We discount future rewards heavily compared to present realities.
Okay, so the past is expired and therefore doubtful. The future is unproven and requires too much faith. So that leaves the present tense as the only safe harbor.
The present cannot be disputed in the same way. Look at that winning headline again. Putting money in bank accounts right now. It implies an active, ongoing state of reality.
It is currently happening.
Yes, it is true in this very fraction of a second. The brain doesn't have to verify the historical context of the past, and it doesn't have to try and predict the risky probabilities of the future. It just has to acknowledge the present reality you are presenting to it.
That is so powerful.
Present tense copy removes that massive cognitive load of doubt. It creates the sense of immediate, undeniable momentum that the user feels compelled to join before they miss out.
I picture it like a train, right? The past tense is someone telling you, hey, the train left the station.
Yeah.
The future tense is the train will arrive eventually. Both involve waiting or missing out.
Right.
But the present tense is the train is moving, the doors are open, jump on right now.
That is exactly it. You want your copy and your arguments to be that moving train. You want to offer them a reality that is already in motion.
Okay, so we've locked in our specific numbers, we've shifted our verbs to the active present, but words don't just float in a void. They live on a page. And there's one piece of digital real estate that is arguably the most terrifying, anxiety-inducing space on the entire internet.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The tiny cluster of pixels right next to the buy button.
The threshold, the absolute ultimate point of friction in any digital interaction.
Yes. The researchers ran a test where they kept the entire page exactly the same. Same headlines, same images, same price. But they simply added a small amount of copy immediately above the order button.
Just a tiny tweak.
Just a few words of reassurance right before the user had to click. And that single tiny addition yielded a 39% increase in conversions.
Massive.
A 39% jump in revenue just from filling in a little bit of blank space.
To really understand why that number is so massive, we have to look at the human physiology of a transaction.
Like what happens in the body.
Yeah. Think about what is happening in a buyer's body when they are hovering their mouse over a submit order button or reaching for their physical credit card. There is a literal, measurable, physiological spike in cortisol.
Really? Stress hormones.
Yes. Behavioral economists refer to this as the pain of paying. Anxiety peaks. Their internal monologue is screaming, am I making a mistake? Is this website secure? What if my spouse gets mad? What if I hate the product and can't get a refund?
Panic sets in.
And if the digital space around that button is just this minimalist, blank expanse of white space, you are leaving the buyer entirely alone with their own escalating anxiety.
You are basically abandoning your customer at the exact moment they were the most terrified. You
Mhm.
walk them all the way to the edge of the cliff and then just step back and watch them sweat.
That space right above, below, or beside the final button is arguably the most valuable real estate on your entire platform. This is fundamentally not the place for minimalist, Apple-esque design principles.
Don't leave it blank.
Right. This is the place for massive psychological support. You need to use those pixels to boldly restate your money-back guarantee. You need to display the security badges showing their data is encrypted. You need to summarize the primary life-changing benefit of the product one final time.
You have to virtually hold their hand as they cross the finish line.
The fact that conversions jumped 39% just from utilizing that space, it proves how desperately consumers are begging to be reassured at the final moment of commitment.
So the practical application here is incredibly clear. Never leave the space near the point of friction empty. Whether you are asking a customer for their credit card, asking a subscriber for their email address, or honestly, even asking a colleague to commit their time to a meeting on a calendar invite. Use the immediate surrounding space to de-risk the action.
Tell them it's safe.
Tell them they can back out if they need to. Give them the psychological permission to feel good about making the click.
Alleviate the friction at the exact moment the friction is highest.
Okay, so we've established that changing a few words or moving the mirror button can create these massive 24% or 39% swings in revenue. But what happens when we go beyond the text and start messing with the visual layout of the page itself?
This is where it gets really fun.
Or painful, depending on your job. Because this brings us to honestly the most brutal, ego-destroying truth in this entire data set. There is a massive, violent war happening every day on the internet between what looks good to a trained graphic designer and what actually converts a visitor into a buyer.
Oh, this is where aesthetic pride is often the direct enemy of profitability.
Let's unpack the Vigon test, because it's a perfect illustration of this war. So Vigon was a company selling a topical cold sore remedy. The graphic designer, who was simply doing the job they were hired to do, built a beautiful, harmonious website.
Very professional.
Right, because it was a medical product.
Mm.
They used a very calming, professional blue color scheme. They designed a sleek blue headline that perfectly matched the rest of the site's aesthetic. It looked incredibly trustworthy.
It looked like something a high-end pharmaceutical company would produce.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But because it blended in perfectly, it became entirely invisible to the human eye.
Yep.
So a direct response marketer steps in, looks at this beautiful blue page and says, let's run a split test. We are going to test this harmonious blue headline against a jarring, objectively ugly red headline.
A designer's worst nightmare.
The red completely clashed with the calming blue site. It broke every single rule of color theory. It shattered the graphic design harmony. It looked loud and aggressive.
And the data from the split test.
The ugly red headline increased sales by an astonishing 313%.
Mind-blowing.
It took the baseline conversion rate from a modest 3% and skyrocketed it to 12.5%. The beautiful, professional design was actively suppressing their sales by over 300%. I mean, why does the brain reward the ugly design?
This exposes a really fundamental misunderstanding of what a digital interface is actually supposed to do in a commercial setting.
Okay, what is it supposed to do?
Well, a graphic designer's primary goal is often harmony. They want the user's eye to wash over the page smoothly without hitting any jagged edges or visual speed bumps. They want the colors to blend, the fonts to complement each other.
Right, it should look nice.
But from a behavioral standpoint, harmony is the mortal enemy of attention.
Harmony puts the brain into power-saving mode.
Exactly. When everything perfectly matches, nothing stands out as important. The human brain is, at its core, a pattern recognition machine forged by millions of years of evolution.
Survival instinct.
Right. On the savannah, our ancestors survived by scanning their environment for anomalies. If everything was green grass, we zoned out. But if there was a sudden patch of orange in the green grass, our brain spiked with adrenaline because that anomaly might be a tiger.
Right, pay attention or die.
We are biologically wired to ignore the harmonious and hyperfixate on the disruptive. So if a web page is entirely beautiful blue and white, our brain categorizes the whole thing as safe, predictable, nothing to process here, and we essentially go blind to the messaging.
Wow.
But when you introduce a jarring, clashing, ugly red headline into a calm blue environment, you violently break the visual pattern.
You are putting the tiger in the grass.
Precisely. Red is the color of blood. It is
Wow.
the color of danger, of primal urgency, of stoplights and alarms. It commands the autonomic nervous system to halt and pay attention.
It forces you to look.
Now, might that red headline look ugly in a designer's portfolio? Yes.
No.
Might it make an art director literally cringe? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But in direct response marketing, you are not trying to win a Webby Award for aesthetics.
You're trying to make sales.
You are fighting a brutal war to capture and hold a human being's immensely fractured attention. The jarring red headline acts as a visual stop sign. It forces the scanning eye to freeze and actually read the words.
And as we established earlier, the words are what actually do the psychological selling.
Yes, the design's only functional job is to force the user to read the words.
The design is just the delivery mechanism for the copy. If the delivery mechanism is too smooth, the package just slides right past the recipient.
That's a great way to put it.
I always think about sites like Craigslist or the Drudge Report or honestly even early Amazon. They were phenomenally ugly, just raw text and blue links, but they forced you to read them. They didn't collar your eyes.
Form follows function.
Data must always win over ego, even if it hurts to look at. So speaking of visual elements, let's move from colors to images. Specifically, the famous HiRise test.
Oh, this is a classic.
HiRise was a CRM software tool built by the legendary company 37 Signals, who are very famous for their design philosophy. They were running a standard split test on their homepage, pitting a short-form minimalist page against a long-form text-heavy page.
Okay.
The long-form text page was winning by about 37.5%, which makes sense, right? More copy, more persuasion. But then they introduced a radically different visual design that threw everything out the window.
Yeah, this is widely considered a watershed moment in digital marketing case studies.
They stripped away almost all of the dense, highly persuasive text. They took the entire background of the website and replaced it with a massive, high-resolution photograph of a smiling customer named Jocelyn.
Just a giant picture.
Yeah, and her personal, authentic testimonial became the main headline of the site. It went from this dense software brochure to basically just a giant, smiling human face staring right at you.
And the results.
This radical, simplified design skyrocketed their conversions by 102.5%. I mean, why does a face beat out all that logical copy?
Because it forces us to reckon with how human beings actually prefer to consume information and assess trust. We are deeply biologically wired to seek out faces.
Right.
Like from the moment an infant opens its eyes, its neural pathways are optimized to locate eyes, read facial expressions, and establish human connection. The fusiform face area in the brain dedicates massive computing power solely to processing human faces.
I think about it like walking into a crowded networking event or like a cocktail party. Do you want to walk in, stand in the corner alone, and read a dense corporate brochure about how great the DJ is and how high quality the appetizers are?
No one wants to do that.
Right. Or do you want to look across the room and see a real, authentic person smiling, having a genuinely great time, and waving you over to join them?
Exactly. The original text-heavy page, even though it was winning against the short version, it was still just a brochure. It was a faceless corporation communicating to a target demographic.
It felt cold.
Very cold. It required the user to burn cognitive calories reading bullet points, processing features, and translating those features into emotional benefits in their own mind. But by putting a massive smiling human face on the page, 37 Signals entirely bypass the logical processor and change the context of the interaction.
It transformed from a B2B software transaction into a human-to-human introduction.
Bingo. Jocelyn's smiling face instantly, subconsciously communicates trust, satisfaction, and ease. Before the visitor's conscious brain even reads a single word of her testimonial, their mirror neurons are already firing.
They see she's happy, so they feel happy.
Exactly, registering her positive emotional state and reflecting it back. The design didn't just highlight a software feature, it provided undeniable, visceral proof of the ultimate end result.
A happy, relieved human being.
Yes. That profound emotional connection entirely bypasses the need for logical analysis, which is exactly why it doubled their conversion rate while using a fraction of the words.
Okay, so faces beat text, and visual contrast beats aesthetic harmony. But I want to dig into a part of the data that initially seems to, well, completely contradict itself.
Oh, the plot thickens.
Yeah, and this is where the nuance is so critical, because if you just blindly copy tactics without context, you'll destroy your own business. Let's look at the phenomena of feature boxes and the immense danger of overselling.
This is a fantastic paradox within the data, and honestly, it separates the amateurs from the professionals.
So in one split test, the marketers were inspired by Sony's corporate website. They took their standard sales page and added the feature box. This is a designated, visually distinct block of space that highlighted unexpected secondary benefits of the product.
Like what?
They highlighted things like heroic customer support and access to a vibrant global community. And simply adding this extra box of information boosted their overall conversions by a massive 63%.
A clear, definitive win for providing more information to the consumer.
Right. But in a subsequent test on a totally different product, they had a sales page that already featured a bunch of extra informational blocks detailing various specs and bonuses. The marketer decided to test the exact opposite hypothesis.
They took them away.
They tested removing those blocks entirely, just deleting all that extra information and streamlining the page. And removing those informational blocks increased conversions by a shocking 80.18%.
Wow.
So we have a major conflict here. You add a feature box, sales go up 63%. You delete informational blocks, sales go up 80%. Which is it? Do consumers actually want more information, or do they want less?
This is exactly why a list of hacks is useless without an understanding of the underlying psychological architecture.
Right.
Let's synthesize these two tests carefully because they are not actually contradictory. The success or failure of the element is not about the amount of information. It is entirely about the function of the information being presented at that specific moment in the buyer's journey.
Okay, walk me through the difference in function between those two tests.
Sure. In the first test, we're adding the box 1. What specific information did they add? They added unexpected benefits that served entirely to lower the buyer's perceived emotional risk.
Like the customer support.
Right. A box proclaiming heroic customer support isn't a feature of the software. It is a psychological safety net. It tells the anxious buyer, if you break this, or if you aren't smart enough to figure it out, you will not be abandoned. We will rescue you.
That feels good to hear.
Exactly. And highlighting a vibrant global community tells the buyer, you aren't making this risky decision alone. You are joining a tribe of like-minded people who have already validated this choice.
So it's about belonging.
Yes, these are not product specifications. They are emotional reassurances. Adding them increases baseline trust and directly counters the fear of buyer's remorse, which naturally drives conversions up.
I see. They weren't adding features at all. They were adding courage.
Now, analyze the second test, where removing the blocks yielded an 80% increase. What was inside those specific blocks?
Specs, right.
Yeah, they were filled with dense, highly technical, arguably irrelevant product details. It was a classic case of a marketer over-explaining the product because they are too close to it.
We've all been there.
When a customer is already sold on the core transformation your product offers, and they are actively moving down the page toward the checkout, throwing more dense, logical information at them does not reassure them. It creates cognitive overload and decision fatigue.
It's like they were walking to the cash register and you keep jumping in front of them saying, wait, let me tell you about the thread count. Wait, let me explain the supply chain. You are literally distracting them from giving you money.
Exactly. You force their brain to abruptly stop the purchasing momentum, switch back into analytical mode, process new variables, and suddenly they think, wait, do I actually need this specific technical feature? I don't understand this spec. Maybe this product is too complicated for me. I should think about this and come back later.
And they leave.
You introduce massive friction where absolutely none existed. So the resolution to the paradox is this. You must explicitly highlight the right unexpected benefits that act as emotional safety nets. But you must ruthlessly, violently eliminate dense, irrelevant information that causes cognitive overload.
Give the brain exactly what it needs to feel safe and then get out of the way.
Yes. Get the hell out of its way so it can execute the purchase.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that transitions perfectly into the next major theme of the data, which is removing buying friction and reframing the offer. Because once you've captured their attention with an ugly red headline, and you've built subconscious trust with a smiling human face, and you've given them the emotional safety net, you still have to actually extract the credit card from their wallet.
The hardest part.
And the data shows that business owners are incredibly, almost comically guilty of putting massive, unnecessary roadblocks right in front of their own cash registers.
We self-sabotage our own success, usually out of a misplaced fear of appearing too aggressive or, salesy.
The most glaring example of this in the data is what we can call the order button delay myth. For years, the absolute conventional marketing wisdom taught by every guru in the space, dictated that if you have a video sales letter, a VSL, you absolutely must hide the buy button when the page loads.
It was treated as gospel.
You force the viewer to sit there and watch the video for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, building value. And the button only magically appears on the page at the exact second plan. The narrator in the video finally reveals the price. The logic seems sound, right? Like if they see a high price tag too early, before they understand the value, they will be scared away.
It was treated as an unshakable law of physics in the digital marketing industry. Hiding the button was mandatory.
But the split test utterly destroyed that assumption. They tested the traditional delayed button against a radical alternative, which was showing the order button immediately, highly visible from the very first second the video started playing.
And what happened?
Showing the button immediately increased upsell conversions by a staggering 188.41%, almost triple the revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, why did this deeply entrenched conventional wisdom fail so spectacularly in the real world?
It failed because the conventional wisdom relies on what I call the monolith audience fallacy.
What's that?
It assumes that every single human being who lands on your webpage is at the exact same stage of awareness, the exact same level of pain, and requires the exact same amount of persuasion to make a decision. It treats a highly diverse traffic stream as a single, uniform entity, but traffic is never a monolith.
Right, like some people clicked an ad by accident 5 seconds ago and have literally no idea who you are or what you do. They need the 20-minute video.
But what about the other segments of the audience? What about the returning visitor who watched 19 minutes of the video yesterday, had to leave to pick up their kids, and came back today specifically to buy?
Oh, that's so true.
Or what about the person who read an incredibly glowing, detailed review of your product on a trusted blog, and they click the link with their physical credit card already sitting on their desk? When you hide the buy button, you are actively punishing your hottest, most eager customers.
You're making them wait.
You are forcing a human being who is begging to give you money to sit through a tedious 20-minute presentation just to hunt for the cash register.
I always think about this like a retail experience. Imagine walking into an Apple store. You've done the research. You know exactly which MacBook Pro you want. You have the cash in your pocket. You walk up to an employee and say, "I'd like to buy this one, please."
Right, take my money.
And the employee says, "Absolutely. But first, you have to sit in this chair while I present a 20-minute mandatory slideshow about the history of microchips and our corporate ethos. Then and only then will I reveal the cash register."
You'd lose your mind.
You wouldn't sit there. You'd get frustrated, feel disrespected, and literally walk out of the store.
It breeds immense resentment. And furthermore, even for the totally cold traffic who does actually need to watch the video, hiding the button often triggers a subconscious alarm.
How so?
Modern consumers are incredibly sophisticated. They know they are on a sales page. When they're watching a video and they look around and physically cannot find a way to see the price or buy the product, it creates a lingering sense of unease.
They feel trapped.
Their internal monologue says, what are they hiding? Is this some sort of timeshare presentation? Is this going to cost $10,000?
Wow, yeah.
Showing the button immediately, with the price clearly visible, builds immediate trust through radical transparency. It communicates, here is the offer, here is the price, we believe in it, and the button is here whenever you are ready. It gives the user a sense of agency and control.
And people love control.
And in behavioral psychology, giving the user a feeling of control almost universally decreases anxiety and increases conversions.
The overarching theme here is that we need to stop overprotecting the user from the sale. And we see this exact same dynamic play out again with the free trial button placement test.
Oh, the neuropathy site.
Yes, there was a site called the Neuropathy Support System offering relief for nerve pain. They had a giant, bright yellow start your free trial button.
Right.
Logically, following traditional copywriting structure, they had this button placed further down the page, after the headline, after the explanatory copy, after the features and benefits were clearly laid out.
Right. Build the case first.
But the team decided to test taking that giant, obnoxious yellow button and moving it to the absolute top of the page, above the fold, before the product was even fully explained, before the ultimate price was even discussed.
Which is, again, a total violation of traditional persuasive structure. You are demanding the action, asking for the trial, before you have even presented the value proposition.
And yet, moving it to the top raised overall conversions by 33%.
This test highlights the unique psychological power of the word free and how it alters the persuasion timeline.
Because it's zero risk.
Exactly. For a specific subset of your audience, the perceived risk is so incredibly low because it is a free trial that they simply do not require a 5,000-word sales letter to justify the action. Furthermore, you have to factor in the severity of the pain point here.
Neuropathy is intense.
It's a painful, chronic condition. When the pain is that high, the mere promise of a free potential solution is often enough to trigger immediate action. By forcing the button to the top of the page, you capture the high-intent, high-pain visitors instantly, allowing them to bypass the friction of reading copy they don't need.
You are just opening the front door as wide as possible. Okay, let's look at the absolute most critical juncture of the entire process, which is the exact moment someone is actually typing in their credit card information. The point of no return.
It's the final hurdle.
The researchers tested an order form that people were sent to immediately after watching a highly persuasive webinar. On the control version of the page, it was just standard clean fields. Name, address, credit card number, expiration date. Very standard.
Pretty typical checkout.
On the test version, they didn't change the price, but they added a simple recap box on the right side of the page. It was just a bulleted list reiterating everything they were getting in the package, plus a reminder of the 30-day money-back guarantee.
Conceptually, such a minor, almost redundant addition, right? They already know what they're buying from the webinar.
A tiny addition. But that simple recap box increased actual sales by 120%.
It's wild.
The revenue per visitor jumped from $4.57 to $10.04. More than double the money, just from reminding them what they were buying while they typed their credit card number. That is wild to me.
It seems wild until you understand the deep psychology of post-purchase rationalization and the dual brain system.
Dual brain.
Yeah, when a consumer is typing their credit card details into a form, a massive shift occurs in their brain. During the webinar, their emotional brain was in the driver's seat.
They were pumped up.
The emotional brain was excited by the storytelling. It desired the transformation. It said, yes, I want to change my life. But the second they land on the checkout page, the logical, analytical brain violently takes the wheel.
Because money is involved.
The logical brain is the one actually typing the 16-digit number, and the logical brain's primary job is to protect resources. Therefore, it starts frantically looking for reasons to abort the mission.
It's actively looking for an emergency exit.
It wants to avoid the pain of paying. The logical brain starts asking, wait, do I really need this? Is this a scam? Is this too expensive? How am I going to explain this charge to my wife or my business partner?
The doubts creep in fast.
The logical brain desperately needs ammunition to justify the purchase, not just to itself in the moment, but to social peers later on. The recap box provides that essential logical ammunition.
That makes so much sense.
At the exact moment of highest friction, it serves as a visual anchor, reminding the analytical brain of the massive stack of value they are receiving in exchange for the resource they are giving up. It forcibly shifts the user's focus away from the cost, the credit card field, and refocuses it entirely on the benefit, the bullet points.
Wow, okay. You have to arm the logical brain so it can defend the emotional brain's decision.
Precisely.
And speaking of mitigating cost, the data shows another massive winner when dealing with higher ticket items, specifically a $197 product. They offered a split pay option on the checkout form. So instead of demanding $197 today, they gave the user the option to pay $99 today and $99 next month.
A classic strategy.
And the split pay option completely blew the single pay option out of the water in terms of total conversions.
Again, this is a masterclass in lowering the immediate perceived risk and aiding that logical justification process. A $197 purchase is a significant mental hurdle for most people.
It's a real investment.
It crosses the threshold, it requires budgeting, and it requires significant internal justification. By offering a split pay, even if you charge a slight premium and the total cost ends up being slightly higher than the single pay, you drastically lower the immediate day one financial risk.
You essentially make the hurdle half as high to jump over.
You lower the temperature of the transaction, you allow the consumer to acquire the product, experience the value, and convince themselves it was a brilliant decision before the rest of the financial burden even comes due.
Okay, so we have covered the microscopic power of specific words, the counterintuitive nature of ugly design, and the psychological tactics for removing friction at the checkout. But here is where the master-level marketers separate themselves from the amateurs who just blindly copy-paste tactics.
The trap of tactics.
Because everything we just talked about, it can be completely disastrously wrong depending on who's actually clicking the link.
This is the invisible variable that ruins so many campaigns. Context.
Context is king, the traffic source and the preframe. The data reveals a terrifying reality for anyone running paid ads or building funnels. A strategy that works brilliantly and generates millions of dollars when shown to a friend will actively repel a stranger and literally bankrupt your ad account.
It's a harsh truth.
Let's look at the warm versus cold traffic test.
This is perhaps the most crucial distinction that trips up otherwise intelligent business owners.
The researchers tested a specific opt-in page designed to capture email addresses. The winning design had a very specific, visually distinct three-step process laid out graphically right above the email input form.
Very structured.
Very explicit.
Yes.
Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3, get your incredible result. When they sent warm traffic to this page, meaning they emailed a link to people already on the creator's email list, people who knew him, liked him, and had consumed his content before, this three-step process page won every single time. It crushed the control.
It provided comforting clarity and a clear roadmap for a highly receptive audience.
But when they took that exact same mathematically proven winning page and they sent cold traffic to it, meaning they ran Facebook ads or banner ads to people who had literally never heard of this creator before in their lives, that three-step process tanked conversions.
Crickets.
It scared people away. The exact same HTML, the exact same words, yielded completely opposite results. Why?
This only makes sense when you view it through the lens of the trust economy. Warm traffic and cold traffic operate on entirely different psychological wavelengths.
Right.
Warm traffic operates in an environment of high trust and incredibly low skepticism. If a trusted friend or a mentor tells you, hey, I have a gift for you, I just need you to jump through these 3 quick hoops, you will gladly do it because you implicitly trust that the outcome will be worth your time and effort.
You already believe in them.
Exactly. To warm traffic, the explicit 3-step process feels like a fun, clear, guided roadmap to success.
Just follow these 3 simple instructions, and I will help you solve your problem.
But cold traffic operates in a harsh environment of absolute zero trust and massive defensive skepticism. Their guard is completely up. If a total stranger walks up to you on the street and asks you to complete a 3-step process before they even give you anything of value, what does your brain immediately say?
It says, this is a scam, this is way too much work, what's the catch? I don't owe you anything.
Exactly. To a cold, skeptical audience, a 3-step process does not look like a roadmap. It looks like a chore. It looks like a high barrier to entry. Cold traffic requires instant gratification to build that initial, fragile baseline of trust.
You can't ask them for work yet.
No, they need the friction to be as close to zero as physically possible before they will hand over their email address. This data definitively proves that you cannot use the same landing pages for your warm, loyal email list that you use for your cold Facebook ads.
They need different treatment.
The psychological context of the visitor must dictate the structural architecture of the page.
That is a very harsh reality check for anyone trying to just set up one single funnel, point all their traffic at it, and call it a day. The audience's relationship to you dictates how you must build the architecture.
Completely.
And speaking of that human relationship, there is a fascinating split test from HubSpot regarding the context of email marketing. They tested sending a mass marketing email where the sender name in the inbox was just the corporate brand, HubSpot.
Oh, okay.
Then they tested sending the exact same email with the exact same subject line and copy, but they changed the sender name to a real person at the company, Maggie Georgieva, HubSpot.
Such a tiny tweak to the invisible metadata of an email.
A tiny tweak that resulted in a 32% increase in click-through rate, meaning 32% more people actually clicked the link inside the email, and an 8% increase in open rate. To put that in perspective for anyone not in email marketing, moving a click-through rate by 1 or 2% is considered a major victory.
Huge win.
A 32% jump is monumental.
This entirely reinforces the biological realities we discussed earlier with the Jocelyn picture on the high-rise test. Human beings fundamentally do not want to interact with faceless corporations.
We really don't.
A corporation, by its very legal definition, cannot be trusted in a human sense. It is an entity designed to extract profit. But Maggie is a person.
Maggie has feelings.
Right. Maggie is sitting at a desk somewhere, drinking a coffee, typing an email, trying to communicate with me.
If I have a problem, I can reply to Maggie and expect a human response. I cannot reply to a corporate logo and expect empathy.
Exactly. By putting a specific human name in the inbox, you are shifting the context from a one-to-many B2B corporate broadcast into a one-to-one human correspondence. Even if the recipient intellectually, logically knows it is an automated marketing email sent to 10,000 people, their subconscious brain still responds to the deeply ingrained social cue of a human name.
That's wild.
We are biologically wired to listen to people, not brands.
Always put a human face and a human name on your marketing. Okay, let's look at one of the most subtle, yet intellectually thrilling psychological tricks in this entire document. It's about the psychology of the pre-frame.
Ah, yes.
When someone buys a product or opts into an email list, you often send them to a second page. Maybe it's a thank you video, or maybe it's an upsell offering them something else. The researchers tested the exact copy on the button that physically transitions the user from page A to page B.
The literal bridge between two distinct actions.
The control button used standard language. It said finish. You filled out the form, click finish to submit your data. The test button changed that copy to get your access.
Such a different vibe.
The get your access button completely and utterly outperformed finish. But here's the thing. Mechanically, the user's doing the exact same action. They are clicking a button to submit a form. Why does the brain care so deeply about those specific words?
This touches on one of the most important concepts in behavioral psychology, which is the profound difference between closing a loop and opening a loop. Words like finish, submit, complete, or done signal to the brain that the current transaction is over.
The task is done.
The narrative arc of the task has reached its conclusion.
It's like a movie. The hero won. The screen fades to black. The credits start rolling.
That is the perfect analogy. And when the brain thinks the movie is over, what does it do? It powers down. In psychology, there is a concept called the Zeigarnik effect, named after Bluma Zeigarnik.
Okay.
She noticed that waiters in a restaurant could remember incredibly complex orders perfectly right up until the moment the food was delivered and paid for.
Yeah, man.
The second the bill was settled, the loop was closed, they completely forgot the order, the brain clears its RAM. When a user clicks finish, their dopamine spikes, the tension of the task releases, and they mentally prepare to close the browser tab.
They're out of there.
So if you send them to an upsell page after they click finish, their brain is going to be incredibly hostile and resistant because you are trying to restart a cognitive machine they just intentionally powered down.
Their internal monologue says, wait a minute. I thought we were done here. Why are you pitching me something else? Let me out of here.
Precisely. You violated the expectation of completion, but look at the phrase, get your access. That phrase explicitly does not close the loop. It opens a new one.
It promises more.
It implies that the action you just took, filling out the form, was merely the key turning in the lock, and the actual reward, the exciting part, is waiting for you on the other side of the door. It maintains forward momentum. It keeps the user in an expectant, elevated psychological state.
They're leaning forward in their chair, not leaning back.
So when they land on the next page, whether it's a welcome video or a pitch for an upsell, they are psychologically primed to receive new information. They don't feel tricked into a continued transaction. They feel like they are progressing to the next stage of the journey. The pre-frame entirely dictates the reality of the next page.
That is brilliant. The Zeigarnik effect.
Yeah.
Never let them close the cognitive loop until you are entirely definitively done with the relationship. Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground.
So much data.
If we take all these disparate tests, the specific numbers, the present tense verbs, the ugly red designs, the faces, the immediate buttons, the open loops, and we combine them into a single mathematically proven mega strategy, what does that actually look like?
The ultimate page.
Yeah, the team at .com Secrets Labs put together what they call their control blueprint, which is basically the Voltron of high-converting web pages.
It is the ultimate synthesis of all this empirical data into a repeatable architecture.
Their ultimate landing page for capturing leads has a few non-negotiable elements. First, it uses a curiosity-based headline. Not a benefit-driven one, but purely curiosity. You don't tell them exactly what the mechanism is, you only tease the incredible results, so they have to give you their email to scratch the itch and find out how it works.
Curiosity is a powerful driver.
Second, and this is wild, they use a mini-survey instead of a normal email opt-in form. They force the user to answer a question or two before even asking for the email. Why put a survey in the way? Doesn't that add friction?
It adds mechanical friction, yes, but it drastically reduces psychological friction through the power of micro-commitments and consistency bias.
How does that work?
A normal email form asks the user for value, their personal data, immediately. It's a cold transaction. A survey, however, asks for their opinion first,
Right.
and human beings absolutely love giving their opinion.
We really do.
By clicking a simple multiple choice button on a survey, the user has taken a micro action. They have invested a tiny, painless bit of effort into your ecosystem. Once they have answered two simple questions, human consistency bias kicks in.
I've already started this little quiz. I might as well finish it and see my result.
Exactly. The email field at the very end of the survey feels like the natural, earned conclusion to an interaction they willingly participated in, rather than a cold demand for their private data. It drastically lowers the psychological barrier to entry by getting them to say yes to small, easy things first.
Okay, so that's the landing page. Then the ultimate sales video page in their blueprint. It features a headline above the video to provide context before they hit play. It features an autoplay video so the presentation starts immediately.
Right, get right into it.
But here's the kicker. The video player allows you to pause, but it physically prevents you from fast-forwarding. If they added a fast-forward scrub bar, conversions plummeted. And of course, it features an immediately visible call-to-action button below it. Why is the restriction on fast-forwarding so vital?
Because a well-constructed sales presentation is a carefully paced, meticulously engineered psychological journey. It builds tension, it introduces a villain or a pain point, it reveals a mechanism for salvation, and it resolves with the offer.
It is structured exactly like a movie script. You wouldn't let someone fast-forward to the final 5 minutes of a thriller. They'd completely ruin the emotional payoff of the twist.
Precisely. If a user scrubs forward to just look at the price without experiencing the slow buildup of value, the price will always universally seem too high because it lacks the necessary context. You must control the pacing of the narrative to ensure the emotional impact lands.
Makes sense.
But you must allow them the ability to pause, because taking away all control creates a feeling of claustrophobia and panic, and their only recourse will be to close the browser window entirely to escape.
Control the pace, but don't trap them in the room. I love that. But here is the absolute secret weapon of this entire blueprint. It is not a design element. It is not a button placement or a color choice. It is a linguistic tool that they injected into their video scripts, and it increased their dollars per lead by an unbelievable 74.61%.
The trial closes.
Yes, they refer to them as trial closes.
This is perhaps the most powerful and often misunderstood psychological lever in the entire dataset.
The data reveals that simply injecting tiny two-word phrases throughout your presentation changes everything. Phrases like, "Can you see how?" "Do you follow me so far?" "Does that sound good?"
Yeah.
"Don't you agree?"
Little check-ins.
They were literally just asking the listener tiny, seemingly rhetorical questions every few minutes.
Inserting them strategically after reading testimonials, after revealing major features, and during the transitions between concepts.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this one, because as a consumer, when I'm talking to a car salesman and he keeps saying, "Does that make sense? Don't you agree? Great car, right?" Cool. It feels incredibly manipulative. My guard goes all the way up. It feels cheap. It feels salesy. Do consumers not see right through this tactic when they watch a video?
It is a very fair challenge, but we have to separate bad, clumsy execution from the underlying psychological principle.
Okay, lay on me.
When it is done aggressively by a bad salesperson, yes, it feels like a cheap parlor trick. But when done authentically and smoothly within a presentation, it serves a profound cognitive function. Let's look at the actual mechanics of what happens in the human brain when I ask you a question. Let's say I explain a concept and then ask, does that sound good to you?
My brain automatically tries to formulate an answer to the question.
It literally cannot help it. The human brain is an automatic call and response organ. When presented with a question, it instinctively pauses its internal monologue to formulate a response.
That's it.
When a user is watching a 30-minute sales video, their mind is inevitably wandering. They are passively receiving your information while simultaneously thinking about what they're going to make for dinner, an email they need to send, or their kids in the next room.
They're watching the screen, but they aren't actively engaged in the material.
Exactly. A trial close forces active, conscious participation. If you just list a feature like, this software automates your daily emails, the viewer passively thinks, okay, neat. But if you transition from that feature to a benefit by asking a trial close, can you imagine how much time this will save you on Monday mornings? How? What does the viewer's brain have to do to answer that?
It actually has to visualize Monday morning. It has to picture the stress of the inbox and then picture the relief of the saved time. It forces visualization.
Exactly. You aren't tricking them into anything. You are forcing their brain to actively visualize the benefit in the specific context of their own life. You are aligning their wandering internal monologue with your offer. Furthermore, if you ask a simple question like, "Do you follow me so far?" and they nod their head at their computer screen, they are making a physical micro-commitment of agreement.
They are building a subconscious habit of saying yes to you.
If they say yes to all the small things along the journey, does that make sense? Isn't that a great case study? Can you see how this works? Well, the psychological friction required to say yes to the big thing at the end, the purchase itself, is drastically reduced.
Because they've been agreeing with you all along.
Right. It feels like the natural, inevitable continuation of an agreement you have both been building together for half an hour. It is a masterful use of human psychology to maintain attention, force visualization, and build consensus.
That is just, it requires a completely different paradigm for how to look at communication. You aren't just a broadcaster, broadcasting information into the void. You are actively architecting a series of internal agreements in the listener's mind.
Yes.
You are co-authoring the conclusion with them.
And the data does not lie. A nearly 75% increase in revenue just from asking people to mentally agree with you along the way.
Wow. Okay, we have to start pulling all these threads together.
Yeah.
Because this has been an absolute masterclass in behavioral architecture.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We have journeyed from the jarring Vigon red headline that breaks visual patterns, to the high-rise smiling face that hacks mirror neurons, to the immediate order buttons that respect the user's readiness, to the specific numbers that build trust, the present tense verbs that eliminate doubt, the context of warm versus cold traffic, and finally the cognitive alignment of trial closes.
It's a lot to take in.
When we step back and synthesize all of this data, what is the overriding soul of this deep dive?
If there is one singular unifying insight to take away from this entire mountain of split tests, it is that human behavior is predictably, undeniably irrational.
Totally irrational.
The things we logically assume will work, matching colors, polite hidden buttons, beautiful corporate logos, logical promises about the future, they're almost always the exact opposite of what actually drives a human being to take action in the real world.
The things that look the best in a polished boardroom presentation almost always perform the worst in the muddy trenches of the real world.
Because human action is not driven by logic. It is driven by pattern disruption, by visceral emotion, by the search for human connection, by the desperate desire to alleviate immediate risk, and by the undeniable, gripping reality of the present moment.
So true.
If you want to persuade people, whether you are selling a digital product, pitching a radical new idea to your boss, or even just trying to design a resume that actually gets you hired, you must abandon your pristine theories of how you think people should logically behave.
You have to look at the reality.
You must build for how their biology and psychology actually dictate they will behave.
Data must always ruthlessly win over ego. You simply cannot outsmart millions of years of human nature with a pretty font and a clever pun.
You have to meet the human brain where it actually lives, not where you wish it was.
Which brings us right back to where we started this conversation. Remember that pitch black room? Building anything without testing it against reality is just throwing darts while blindfolded.
And hoping for the best.
Right. The beta we went through today is the light switch. But a light switch only works if you have the humility to actually reach out and turn it on. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on.
The ultimate stress test of everything we've learned.
Look at your own life right now. Look at your business, your resume, your creator portfolio, or even just the last really important high-stakes email you sent. Which parts of it did you design based purely on what you thought looked good or sounded clever?
The ego check.
What if the very thing you are the most proud of, the harmonious design, the perfectly crafted future tense promise, the subtle non-salesy approach? What if the thing you think is your masterpiece is actually the invisible roadblock costing you your greatest success?
It might be time to swallow your pride and introduce a little ugly red to your beautiful blue website.
Unpack your assumptions, test everything against reality, and don't be afraid to break the harmony. Catch you on the next deep dive.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.